Okay, there being 6:30, I'm going to start the zoning board of appeals off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section F, this meeting is being recorded. The first hearing tonight is an application of Pine Ridge Estates, LLC, and Bradford Dean, who are seeking a comprehensive permit pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, for a development off Westport Lakes Drive consisting of 38 single-family houses on individual lots, which are to contain 2 or 3 bedrooms, with 10 of those homes being designated as affordable and deed-restricted homes. Subject property is located at 0 Westport Lakes Drive, Westport, Mass., and is shown on Assessor's Map 31, lots 3B, 3C, and 4G. So the way we run the hearings is we'll start off with, I will open it up to the petitioner. The petitioner will provide whatever information is pertinent. At that point, then the board will ask questions, and only after that will they open up to the public. Now, this particular this 40B kind of process is a relatively lengthy one. It's not going to be handled in one hearing, one meeting. There are several aspects of this that we will need a consultant on to help us work with. So this will take, a few meetings or several meetings. So, and what we were going to do on that is then we're going to start off tonight with an overview of the project and just sort of define all the terms and where the issues potentially will be, and then we will plan out what the next meetings will contain. So I am not going to have public comment tonight because we're not going to be at that point in the process. There will be another meeting scheduled, at the end of this hearing for the next meeting, and we will also describe what will be in that hearing. We probably won't even have a lot of board comment because this first one is going to be more of an overview. We're going to have the petition describe the project, describe what if there's any major issues that are involved. And also help us work through what kind of a consultant we would need to go forward with. So again, public comments will not be tonight. Voting on this tonight will be Jerry Coutinho, Ray Elias, myself, Roger Menard, Constance Gee, Cynthia Kosekowitz. That's it. These are the 5 regular voting members. Now, I want to caution the members here that, and we have one missing now. George is not here tonight. If you miss it, this is going to take several meetings. So other people are going to be involved in other voting. But in order to do that, what I'm going to need all the members to do, and I include myself in that, is if you miss a meeting, you really need to then go back and watch it. It will be filmed. You need to watch it on YouTube, and you need to certify that you in fact did watch it, so that you are available for a future vote. Everybody understand that? Because if you miss we can't use you for a future vote if you missed one in between. So it's going to behoove all 7 of us to keep up to date on this, either by attending or by watching the video and certifying that, in fact, you did watch the video. So, name and address, please.
Sure. Paul Cusson,
So before you go, I know I talked to you previous about sort of giving us an overview. Our attorney, George Pucci, is here today and sort of recommended that we not do that. If there's something involved in 40B that we need to understand, our lawyer can provide that to us. So it'll save a little bit of time tonight, not giving us the primer on what a 40B is.
Okay.
So I know that maybe cut you a little bit off, and I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, you took half my spiel away.
I know it, yeah, sort of get you and go. So so we can start off with just sort of a global sense of what this project is, and then sort of work into whatever details you think are are necessary tonight, especially details that are going to help us describe what we're going to need as a consultant to help us get through this process. So, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Cusson of Delphic Associates. Before I start, I just want to be sure I have the voting members correct. So it's Jerry Catino, Ray Ellis, yourself, and who are the other two?
Oh, you can read right across there.
Okay.
Constance and myself.
Okay, and
These are alternate members here.
George would be alternate member?
George and Janice are alternate.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to introduce part of our team. Behind me, in the red shirt, I have Chris Fallon, who is the engineer and principal of Fallon Engineering. And to his left is John Marchant, who is also a professional engineer. And to Christian's right is my assistant Heidi Correa, who's an expert in the area of 40B permitting and that sort of thing. So we work together very closely. So I will stay away from talking about 40B and the law, but I thought one of the, we are here because we did receive a site eligibility letter from Mass Housing. So that gives us the right
One of
to.
the first steps in a 40B is.
Yeah, so what happens, an applicant has to submit a site eligibility application, has a lot of detail. And Mass Housing goes through a particular process, and what they do is they solicit comments from the town and other board members within the town. The Board of Selectmen did get comments from different town boards and so forth, and Mass Housing, after their process, issued us a site eligibility letter, which allows us to come before the zoning board. So under 40B, we come before the zoning board, not the planning.
Right, this is one of the rare instances where the state law actually mandates that a 40B be managed by the zoning board of appeals rather than the normal planning board cycle.
Correct. So back in 1969,
Tony Pucci, isn't that correct?
Yes.
This is one of the few instances where
It's
the
the only one
permit
I'm aware
is
of, yeah.
the only one where the zoning board of appeals actually takes over for the planning board.
Yeah, and more than that, you asked me a question, so I'm just going to introduce myself formally. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm George Pucci from KP Law. I'm going to be assisting you as counsel to the zoning board in the 40B application. It goes beyond planning board, obviously. Basically, the ZBA is going to stand in the shoes of any local board or committee that has jurisdiction over local rules and regulations. And as you get into the process, if you have questions on it, I can further define the scope for you. It doesn't mean that the applicant's entitled to blanket waivers of local rules and regulations. It just means that you're going to be the board to have jurisdiction on local rules and regulations as applicable to the project. And you would also have the jurisdiction to grant waivers if you find that the case has been made that justifies a waiver in whole or in part of a local regulation. So it's, several local boards and committees that are now within your jurisdiction as part of this process. One thing, Mr. Chair, while I just had the floor here, I just wanted to note one issue, just in case there's any confusion on it from the public. It looked like there was a withdrawal of an application related to this property within 1 year of the 40B application. And I just wanted to note to the board, there's a regulation that entitles you to declare that denial of the 40B project is consistent with local needs because they filed the 40B within 1 year of withdrawal of a prior housing proposal for the same parcel that did not involve affordable housing. In this instance,
It did involve affordable housing.
there was an affordable component to it?
Yes.
Okay, if there's a affordable, so two exceptions to it, many exceptions to it. One exception to that would be if there's an affordable component to that prior project, they can refile under 40B within the year of that. And another issue that comes up is even if it didn't involve a affordable housing component before. It was just a regular residential housing project. Unless you have other grounds in town for thinking that you're on the cusp of a safe harbor under the regulations, like if you're at 10% affordable housing, those types of issues. If you have maybe that it's time is of the essence, that you may be in safe harbor within a certain amount of days, you might want to assert safe harbor if it applied with this 1-year rule. In the instance where you don't have other safe harbors available, which it looks like that's the case in the town, even if it was filed within 1 year of the prior withdrawal, the applicant can come back, at that 1-year mark. So really, you're not accomplishing anything if you denied it under that. So I just wanted to just note that procedural thing, just so that people aren't confused of why you're even hearing this in the future. And as the applicant noted also, which I did not know, if the withdrawal of the prior application, if that prior application had an affordable housing component in it, then that 1-year rule does not apply. He can still file for the 40B application within 1 year of that withdrawal.
Right, yeah, thank you.
So I just wanted to note that, because often, there are safe harbors available, just meaning that you don't exercise the jurisdiction under 40B if that's available to you. In this instance, it looks like you do not have any available, so I just wanted to note that to the board at the outset so that people aren't questioning, why you're hearing it in the first place.
Good, thank you.
Roger.
Just
I-
for the public, just hang on a second. This is the reason why we have Attorney Pucci here tonight, is he is well-versed in 40Bs, which is a whole separate entity from the normal zoning that we do. And he talked about safe harbor, and what that means is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney, is that the state has mandates for affordable housing percentages. You're supposed, if you don't have 10% of your housing as affordable, then projects like these are, well, not mandated, but they are certainly, what's
It's
the
a
word
matter
for
that
this?
they're eligible to apply
Right.
to you.
Right. If you had 10% or more, then we don't need to expand necessarily the affordable housing base. So it's more difficult to get those passed because we already have enough affordable housing. Westport is nowhere near that. It's around, and I think,
3.8,
4.1.
3.8 if you want to,
yeah, well, I thought it was more like 2.5, 3, but anyway, it's well under 10%. So we are nowhere near what Attorney Pucci called the safe haven. So that's the reason why this project has gone through all of its previous work with the state to get this project kicked off.
And there are other safe harbors of, like the 1-year rule that I talked about, 1.5% land area. It looks like you
Right.
don't have any of them available.
We don't have any of those, right? Yeah, you had a question.
Yes, I do. Just to clarify, Attorney Pucci, the aspect of our filling in for other local boards, I just want to clarify our role versus the Board of Health and Conservation, who in turn have to deal with state and federal rules. Could you just clarify for us and the public where that stands? We're not versed in all the detail of what the Board of Health requires. Could you tell us, do we work with them or just get an outside consultant that then does it?
Yeah, well, first of all, as part of your process, and your administrator already has it underway, you're going to receive comments from all local boards and committees and department heads. They're going to come to you, you're going to vet them, applicant's going to have a chance to respond, and then you'll have that as part of your process. When it comes to Board of Health or Conservation, so other local boards will have their own jurisdiction over state regulations and requirements, state statutes, regulations, and requirements. Local bylaw provisions that are within their jurisdiction also, though, you will then have the jurisdiction over those issues. That means that you want to make sure, say you have a stormwater control bylaw that the Board of Health has jurisdiction on. You want to make sure that the Board of Health or a consultant is advising you as though you're the Board of Health over those provisions. So that's what you want to make sure, that sometimes there's confusion of, say, a Conservation Commission has jurisdiction on the Wetlands Protection Act, and they think that's the end of it, they just exercise that. If there's a local conservation bylaw, you have to rule on that, or it's forever lost, and the commission never has a chance to exercise that jurisdiction.
So should those boards be working sort of alongside and parallel with us so that they can let us know when it's their jurisdiction and not ours?
Yeah, it depends on the issue. If, you know, as it comes out, we'll see what local rules and regulations apply, who has jurisdiction on them. You'll want them to be weighing in to you on the process. Their state process really doesn't affect you one way or another. That has to go forward at any point in time. It doesn't really affect you. To the extent that you don't have to duplicate effort, like if a consultant can deal with issues that might be within the jurisdiction of another board that fall within your jurisdiction, it makes sense to try to coordinate that effort. But you'll just have to see how it plays out as you go along, and you start to identify the universe of local rules and regulations that are going to apply to this.
Okay. Okay, good, thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, so just, again, this is not our first 40B in town. We did Briggs Landing off of Tickle Road. Jerry and I were just talking about, I think it's about 15 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And I think anybody can look at that development and see that it was fairly successful. It was the first major 40B development in town, and so I just wanted to say that I was the one who permitted that and involved, and we'll be taking the same, working in the same fashion with town boards and so forth as we did then. So as you get any comments from town boards, we would appreciate getting a copy of that as soon as possible, so we may have to respond. So as I said, we're here before the board because we received our site eligibility letter. So the development that we're proposing is off of Westport Lakes Road, which itself is off of Boogamosh Road, Route 177. And we're proposing that particular road is a road that was approved under, by the planning board under a particular subdivision and many years ago. There are, I'm not sure exactly, 7 or 8 nice homes built on there. The rest have not been built on. Why, I don't know. You know, so we're not involved in that, so our development is off of Westport Lakes Road. We have a site plan, and Christian will go through that site plan, just showing you where it's at and talk a little bit about the plan itself. So we're proposing 38 single-family homes that will be fee simple, owned by the individuals. Each lot will be serviced by a town well, and we have a common septic system. So getting back to it.
Can you back up? What kind of,
Yeah, I was just,
well,
each lot.
each lot will have its own
Right, so there are
individual
30
well.
That's correct, so there are.
Okay,
so
you said
there are-
town well, and then,
Yeah, so they'll be served by individual
or your own
wells.
individual well.
Each house will have its own well,
Okay,
and there's a septic system that's gonna be located right off of Westport Lakes Road on the right-hand side, Kristen? On the right-hand side, and the other area, which is sort of an orange color, and the other area is the reserve area. And the rest of
And
that.
Westport Lakes Road is the one that is running, I just drove it yesterday.
Westport Lakes Road is right.
That way,
All
okay.
right, and Route 177, Boogamosh, I guess it's Boogamosh.
Boogamosh Road.
177.
Yep.
Legion
Right,
Highway.
okay.
American Legion, all right.
To get oriented.
Isn't it also Boogamosh?
Or not, when it's
Marsh.
Tiverton.
Oh.
and Tiverton, right, and Tiverton is the
American
Boogamosh.
Legion Highway.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's over here,
Yes.
American Legion Highway is right here.
Right,
Yeah.
And
okay.
you would be coming up American Legion Highway from Route 6 in Dartmouth.
Yep.
And you would take a right up onto
Right.
Westport Lakes Road. And there are several houses here built.
There's like 5 houses and there's a cul-de-sac at the end, well, a roundabout at the
The
end.
cul-de-sac is way down here.
Way down there, okay.
At the end of the development, and I think there's a house on the right-hand side, I think it's the
Yeah.
last lot on the right.
Yeah.
And then I think there's one also on the left, but there were 6 or 7 very nice houses built on Westport Lakes Road. So our entrance is right here.
Right, and it hasn't been cut in or anything, because I was
No.
down there, yeah, right.
I know where it is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's hard to find, and when we had a site visit, when Mass Housing, before they issued the site eligibility letter, we had a meeting on site with Mass Housing, the developer, myself, the town planner, and there's a few other people from town that met there. So we met right at where it's gonna go in. We'd be glad to, if any of the board members would like to have a visit, have us show you exactly where it is, we'd be more than happy to do that. So just let us know.
Okay, so so you take a left,
Okay.
and okay,
You take a left.
Yep.
Okay, and what we have is we have a common septic system, which is right here.
way up there.
Right there. Okay, and that is permitted through Christian, want to talk a little bit about how that's permitted? Which kind of gets a little bit to what the attorney was talking about regarding local.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Christian Fowler, Principal Engineer and President of Fowler Corp. This development will have a shared septic system for the entire development, which means they'll each have an individual well, and then the systems themselves will be gravity to a certain point, and then they'll get pumped to the leaching field. This system will be designed under the 10,000 gallons per day. It will be permitted through the local Board of Health, and also through DEP as well. So this is a septic system that will meet all the town requirements, all the state requirements, just like if it wasn't a 40B, if it was a regular subdivision, it would be the exact same thing. Not seeking any waivers or anything like that.
But not D-night. Is it a regular Title V or D-night?
Title V.
Also, you'll have to be D9 still? Doesn't all septics have to be D9?
I thought they did. I thought new development had to be D-night, but maybe I'm wrong.
We have to go through that process, if that's the case, that's what we would do. So I'd like to continue
Yep.
talking a little bit about development, and then we can get into real specifics, and be glad to answer any questions as we go along, so I don't know where the hell I left off. So there again, it's 38 single-family homes, and there are 13 three-bedroom homes that we're offering, and 25 two-bedroom homes. In your books are the architectural plans that we're proposing. There are 6 different model types that we have, and they range from about 1,600 square feet up to about 2,200 square feet in size. The lots range from about 16,000 square feet to about 35,000 square feet. There are a couple there are a few lots that are in the 10,000 square foot range as well, so I would say 10 to 35,000 square feet is the range of the lots. With an average, there's a total of about 25 acres on the site, so the average lot size is somewhere around 15,000 square feet. If you added them all up and divided by 38, that's what you would get. And under 40B, 10% of the homes, 25% of the homes have to be sold to families who have a household that does not exceed 80% of the area median income. In Westport, that would be approximately right now about $89,900 for a family of 4. So we would be selling, and I can get into the pricing, how the pricing of the affordables is determined, but the pricing of the affordables would be about $250,000. And the market rate homes will be going from about $650,000 to about $825,000, $850,000. So the affordable home is, the test is when you drive down the street you're not supposed to be able to tell which is the affordable home. So we mix them all together, the different types and that sort of thing. And there again, go to Briggs Landing and dollars to donuts, I'll bet you can't tell which ones are the affordables. So and that'll be the same case here. So the outside is, different model types are almost identical. The insides can be a little different, but the outsides are basically the same. And with the affordable homes, 25%, there will be 10 homes that are affordable. I might have misspoken a minute. So it's 25% of the total homes have to be set aside, and there's 10 homes that be sold to the affordable buyer. And with certain justification from the town, we can set aside 70%, we can set aside 7 of those homes for Westport residents. And it breaks up into someone who is living in the town of Westport now could qualify as a local preference, they call it. You could be a town employee, qualify. You could be an employee of a local business. So someone working at Lee's and so forth would, could qualify as a local resident, even though they may live in Fall River or Dartmouth or whatever. So that's another category that the State Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, used to be known as DHCD, will allow that to be a preference item. And also, anyone who is attending local schools, private or public, that go to school and may live in another town could qualify as a preference buyer.
Is there a pecking order on that? I mean.
It's a lottery. What we do is that we run a lottery, and so we get applicants, and the applicants have to say, and we have a place for it to check off, that I am a local resident. And they have to provide proof that, either a pay stub from Lee's or from something from the town that says that they are local. So when we run the lottery, we put all of those names in one bowl. And then what happens, the rest is general applicants who live anyplace. But we also, so the local also get in the, what we call the at-large pool. So the local get a double shot at getting an affordable home. It's not as, it's still difficult.
But you said 70 are set aside, 7 of the house will be set aside for that.
Can be.
Can be. That doesn't mean anything to me. That's like a wish.
No, what happens is that the town has to justify that it would not adversely impact some other groups, and we can work with you. So we have to prepare a letter, send it to the state. The state says, yeah, okay, you can have local preference.
Okay. Any comment, Attorney Pucci?
Yeah, it's totally up to the state. You can do it, you can try, you have to justify it. There's submissions that you'll have to make after the permit.
So we don't have authority over that?
You don't have the authority. It is something that is real. It's not something totally illusory what the applicant
No,
is
we do.
describing. It's a real thing, it's a good faith thing, but it would be subject to the board's, the state's decision-making on it. And they do go through a process where they'll have a lottery and an agent, and that will all be post-permit, how that process would go. But you do have the ability to seek that local preference. But
Okay.
there's further work that the town will have to do on that. And then again, it's subject to the decision.
So then that
of the
gets,
state.
okay, all right.
It's really not a big deal.
No.
It really isn't. I mean, almost all of our developments have local preference. And I haven't seen a town yet that I've been involved in, and we're probably involved in 15 towns, maybe more, but that the state shoots down that local preference is not allowed.
Okay,
We did it at Briggs Landing. We're doing it on several but he's correct. There is a process, and technically the state could say, well, we need more information. So Heidi in my office will work with the town administrator or the ZBA, whoever, to be sure that we submit the proper documentation to get that done.
Can I ask one question? So the 25% that's affordable, will that be a mixture of 2 and 3 family homes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. And the way we do the pricing is that even, you can't make more than 80% of the area median income to qualify. But there's a 10% window. So when we do the pricing, it's based on really 70% of the area median income. So there's a particular process by which we have to go through and get approved by the state as to, I think I have it here, as to what the pricing would be. And so so we do the pricing for a 3-bedroom, it's based on a household of 4. For a 2-bedroom, it's based on a household of 3. So when you do the pricing, it takes into consideration 5% down. In this case, there'll be an HOA, homeowners association. We take that, what is that fee? We take into consideration the interest rates, the insurance rates, all of that, and we do a calculation. And using the most recent Fannie Mae published, Freddie Mac published interest rate, do the calculation, and we come up with a price. And that price right now would be about $250 for the 3-bedroom, and probably about $230 or so for the 2-bedroom. But that doesn't get determined until we do the lottery. So after we go through the whole process of getting hopefully an approval, we then, the developer has got to put the roads in and do a lot of, we have to go, and I'll go through the process with Mass Housing, but we have to get that approval in order to proceed with the lottery. So the other thing, what we've done is that we have, in our application is a waiver list. So we have prepared a waiver list of what we think are the waivers that we're going to need in order to build this development. So the board can look at those as we go through the hearing process and.
Yeah, I think we should like set aside one of the meetings
At least.
to just go through the waivers.
Yeah, and the way the waivers are designed really is that we kind of go through the process of getting the plan approved. And this plan, there's probably going to be some tweaks here and there that might be necessary for this plan. And once the plan is done, we're asking for the waivers to build the plan that you approved. Nothing more, nothing less.
Right, right.
But we,
But these are not waivers to zoning, these are waivers to, for the construction of,
a waiver of lot size, and there's lot size, for
right,
example.
right. I mean, these are things that generally the zoning board doesn't get involved in, but because of the 40B process, so these are waivers against other construction of the, of the whole
Yeah, the
plan.
front setbacks, side setbacks, the lot size,
Those are zoning.
Those go to
Those
zoning.
are zoning.
Yeah.
But you also have like road construction, things like that.
yeah, but our, what we're proposing, we would most likely meet the construction standards of your bylaws.
Sure.
Now, we might not meet the width. We're proposing a roadway of 24 feet wide with a Cape Cod berm on both sides. And we would build it, for example, your bylaws or your subdivision rules and regulations might say 1.5 binder, 1.5 finished course, and that's all. We would do that. So we're not asking for a waiver as to the construction quality, more of the size. And I think we're probably pretty close to what you have anyhow, 24 foot wide. So, and then the waiver list includes some waivers that we might, and we have to go through that, and we'll spend a night or two going through that and explaining each one. But it might be, we might need from the local Concom. Where we have wetlands on the site.
I was gonna ask about that.
The
yes.
wetlands have been approved
You mean,
by the Conservation Commission.
okay,
John, Christian, want to point out where the wetlands are?
Sure. The wetlands are all the green area,
okay,
the lighter green area here.
yep,
That's basically the wetlands here and here. So as you can see, majority, we tried our best to push the road as further up as possible to keep it away from the wetland area. And then you'll see the blue areas here are all the detention for stormwater.
yep.
And again, this is something that we will be filing with conservation, and we are required to meet the state requirements in regards to stormwater regulations and the Wetland Protection Act as well.
Did that,
So
where you've got the road going in there, did it just happen not to be wetlands that split those two wetlands in part, or is it?
It's
that you-
designed that way to avoid the wetlands.
So that is naturally, the wetlands are on either side, and that's where you took the road through, is where it wasn't in the where there's a high.
Correct.
Exactly.
The wetlands is not necessarily determined by the high or the low, it's by vegetation, and a whole bunch of
Right.
other things. But yeah, so we've avoided, Christian avoided the wetlands, so we're not altering any wetland. And one of the waivers, and I have to look at your local bylaw, and we have it in the package. For example, some towns might say, you know, you can't touch the wetland for 50 feet. The state law says you can go right up to the wetland. So we might be asking for a waiver in some places.
We have a setback, I think.
So we could, but what we try to do is, in a way, we don't necessarily want, sometimes someone will say, well, I want to, you know, your bylaw might be 50 feet and we want 25 feet. Well, we don't necessarily want a 25 feet blanket or right straight across. We want it so that we can build a plan. So in some areas it might be 25 feet, some areas might be 50 feet. So we, as we develop the plan, we can, you know, so that's another local that's another typical waiver that we would be looking for. Board of Health might have, they only allow perk tests to be done at a certain time of the year. I don't think it's the case here, but, so those are the type of waivers that we would be looking for.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes.
just weigh in? That was kind of going to Jerry's question from earlier. So you do have a local, I didn't know you have a more restrictive local wetlands bylaw for Westport. So you are going to be sitting in the shoes of the conservation agent
Conservation.
for the local bylaw. And you need to have a thorough process on that. You're gonna want Conservation Commission weighing in, you may need peer review depending on what the issues are. And if you don't act on it, it's forever gone.
Right.
So you need to make sure that that's part of your process. That's one of the examples of that, where Conservation Commission will still exercise its jurisdiction under the State Wetlands Protection Act. You have no say over that. But if they don't have jurisdiction in the 40B process over your local wetlands bylaw, as strange as that is,
Okay.
but you do. So you want to make sure that that is part of your process, because Conservation Commission has no jurisdiction on it in this instance.
Okay, thank you.
So what's going to happen also from an engineering point of view, right now, and we're going to discuss peer review, but what's going to happen is that Christian has developed the plans that we have to date. There's a lot, the process is going to be very similar to a planning board. A planning board, you come in and you submit a preliminary plan. Planning board takes a look at it, they approve it. You then file a detailed, definitive set of plans. The planning board then goes through that process, and then hopefully they'll make changes and so on, but hopefully that'll get approved. Process is very similar here. So the next step, we have to begin our stormwater management plan. Christian and his staff will be taking a look at that, preparing a plan. Now, Christian is probably one of the best engineers around, and I'm sure he's gonna do a super job, but people think he'll do whatever we tell him to do, and that's not the case. He's got a stamp, his livelihood and so forth, he's got to stand behind. So it's not only him designing that plan to meet all the state standards and other standards, then you, the board, are gonna want someone with expertise to look at Christian's plan.
Yes.
And that's called a peer review engineer. So we would like the board to pick, hopefully, someone that is local in another engineering firm. And if you have any suggestions as to who that might be, we'd like to hear that, because we want to be sure there's no conflict with any of us, because we do developments and all over the place. So once that's done, typically, engineers will he'll review the plans, make comments, Christian will respond, and get to the point where both engineers are happy as to, does the plan work? So that's an important process for this town. So we go through so we prepare a preliminary plan. We're now gonna get into stormwater management, which is more than preliminary, but we're still sort of at a preliminary stage. That then gets submitted to the to the board, to the peer review engineer. They will make comments, Christian, so forth. Then, as we go through the process, the board will hopefully make a decision, we'll have to make a decision. And once the decision is made, there may be things in that decision that require further changes to the plan, not unusual at all. So then we now have to submit, so now we get the permit, and it says X, Y, and Z, now we gotta do X, Y, and Z. The peer review engineer looks at it again. So there's several, so just once you make a decision, you're not done. So that's an important process for folks to understand about that particular process. This development, this property, or part of the property, had been, over the years, have been many things that have been proposed on this particular, originally it was over 200 some odd acres of land. And there were there's a couple of vernal pools on this, not necessarily on our site, but within the 200 some odd acres. There's a vernal pool when you go up Gulfview Drive on the left-hand side, inside of the wetlands. There is a vernal pool. At one point in time, I'm not sure what the agency, Natural Heritage, I think had taken a look, and there was a four-toed salamander or something that was in the wetland that has since been delisted. There's another vernal pool way to the left on one of the lots off of Westport Lake Road, which is not part of our, we're not involved in that, but that's where another vernal pool is listed. So we believe that's no longer an issue. There were some issues one time about artifacts, Indian artifacts possibly on the site. So there was a study done by Public Archaeological Laboratories, PAL, that have, and we can make that report available to the board if you'd like. It's an older, going back, I don't know, 10 years or so, but things don't change in that regard. So we can make that available to you. So a lot of the agencies over the years have looked at this site, but what we're proposing is on the overall, the existing property owners own more than this particular site, but we've established a particular limited liability corporation that would just be handling this site. So this site is totally independent from the rest of the property.
From the rest of the project, I'm sorry.
Rest of the property. The
Property.
the property that is, the Bradford Dean and his sister Shannon Corey own about a couple of hundred acres. So we're not doing anything on the rest of that land. So we're just talking about this 25 acres. So when I say the rest of, because, see, we know there were some concerns about the rest of the property. So whatever happens at that time, if there's anything to be developed on the rest of the property, they would have to come through a regular planning board process or a zoning board process or whatever process would be in effect at the time.
Now, it appeared on the plans that there were a previous subdivision of portions of this land, which apparently haven't been sold or built on or whatever. Do you have to somehow decertify those lots? Or?
No, I don't know, Jerry, if you're talking about the subdivision on, over here? Yeah, that subdivision.
That doesn't affect you.
No, that subdivision was approved through a planning board process.
Right.
A lot of these lots have been sold, built on, some haven't. We're not involved in that at all.
Right.
So that's-
it's not affecting yours at all.
No,
Okay.
not at all. Now, there is a HOA that has been established for this road. Some people are concerned about the status of that road, you know, what it looks like. The town has a cash bond, and it's been sitting on a cash bond for a zillion years. The concern was that get that road finished, they should have called the cash bond. Planning board or whatever entity needs to do that, should have, could have, maybe they, and the HOA, my understanding is that they've been maintaining snow removal and that sort of thing because it's a private road.
What is HOA?
Homeowner, I'm sorry, homeowners association.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a condo association,
Yeah.
so what happened, and we're proposing the same thing, a different HOA. So what happens is that all of the buyers are responsible, because this road, we have a common septic system, so there's the maintenance of that common septic. In some subdivisions, they go through a particular process and get the roads accepted by the town. My understanding is that Westport will not accept a roadway that has septic and different kinds of things, so that they don't want to be responsible for that. So the HOA, 38 people, there's a budget prepared, and they are responsible to pay that, just like in a condominium. It's similar, but a different mechanism. And that's the same thing here. So we're gonna have snow removal as well. We're gonna have maintenance of the detention basins. We're gonna have the common septic system. But on the individual lots, they're responsible for their own lot. So the HOA is not responsible for some, like in a condominium, you know, if someone else is painting, you'd be responsible, but not here.
So the homeowners association is responsible for the maintenance?
Absolutely.
Of the road.
For the road and the
The
septic.
septic, yeah.
But for the road,
It's not gonna be considered a town-accepted road at any point?
no, they're responsible for what we refer to as a common area.
And how are you gonna get an easement from a private road to get to another private road?
We don't need one.
Why not? It's a private road. Westport Lakes is a private road. How are you gonna get passage?
Because the owner retained the right to pass and repass over the property.
Okay.
Attorney Pucci, you want to chime in on that?
Well, you can't, go ahead.
Yeah, I was interested in the same thing, you know, because obviously if you have an inadequate roadway leading there,
It's not inadequate, it's built to town standards and approved by the planning board. If you drive down there, it's not inadequate by any means. And if it was inadequate, then the town should have done something about it, and they should have pulled the cash bond.
Mr. Chair, when I speak is when you ask me to speak.
Yes.
And when I'm speaking, don't interrupt me,
Go ahead.
please, sir. So I was interested in the same issue, because if, you know, the adequacy of that roadway, regardless of ownership, it might call into question about adequacy to then the new proposed roadway. Issues of ownership are not really in your jurisdiction. If he has a project eligibility letter from the state, which he does, he's an eligible applicant. But it's the condition of that roadway and the adequacy of it to serve all of these residents is certainly something that's going to be relevant and in your consideration. So I don't know what the history of it is. We can look at it a little further. When it comes right down to it, though, if he's an eligible applicant, which he is, you can't deny him based on the ownership status of that access way.
Okay.
But again, it's certainly a relevant issue if you're talking about adding all of these homes to something that's, the sole access is through that roadway.
Right.
So you're gonna get a lot of comment during
Right, and
your
obviously, there's
process.
going to be a lot of, during construction, there's an awful lot of heavy construction equipment going down that road.
Yeah, so you are gonna wanna hear from the applicant. They're gonna have to make the case about the adequacy of
The
that
adequacy of
roadway
that
to
road.
serve there.
Right, and that's something also that our consultant will have to then review and
Correct.
certify that, yeah, the road is.
And your fire department's
Only
gonna have
that
to
part of
weigh
it,
in.
obviously, the road goes much further, well,
Yeah.
a bit further.
It may be adequate now, but it may not be adequate later, which is a concern, right? If it
Right, you're gonna
falls
have to-
disrepair.
All of that would be something relevant within your consideration.
Right, okay.
If I may,
Back
Mr.
to
Chairman.
my original question, about the, there's a lot of lots in that area, okay, that apparently were subdivided, legally subdivided, and from what we've just been told, that's why I'm waiting till tonight for your formal presentation, as to what the real facts are. But we've been told there's only 4 or 5 houses that have been, lots that have been bought and built on and so forth. So there's still quite a number of lots that are
Correct.
just sitting there.
Yep.
But just to clarify, I think what you're saying is, the area that you're addressing has never been legally subdivided for any other purpose.
This lot was created.
Okay?
Mhm.
For you, you're saying?
Yes, to get access to the back here.
Okay.
But all of these lots, I think there's 7 or 8 houses, but whatever.
I think it's 5, isn't it? Yeah, 5.
5, okay, 5 it is, I thought it was more. And there are, I think there were 22 lots originally approved.
Yeah, it was a large.
So there's a
number.
lot of lots to be built on.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's my point, is
But
that,
that's,
some of those lots could still be sold, 'cause they haven't, like, dismantled the
oh, no, yeah,
legality.
as far as I know, those lots are
Are still building.
buildable lots. I think they meet dimensional requirements, the zone, and all of that sort of thing.
But
So-
where you're building, it's not been subdivided for lots previously.
Correct.
Okay.
There was a plan that we talked about earlier that was submitted and withdrawn. That was gonna be a 50, but that never got approved, and so nothing, so to answer your question, this was never subdivided.
Right, well, someone came before, I don't know if it's current owners or previous owners, but someone came before this board back around 2006, 7, or 8, for a golf course.
That's correct.
And a whole lot of other housing, 72 units and so forth, okay.
Yeah, they were proposing at that time a golf course, so getting to the question of the accuracy of this road was built and designed for a tremendous number of vehicle trips per day. It was going to be a golf course and I think 70 or 72 condos.
72, yeah.
So the traffic study that was done, we're gonna have to do a new traffic study, or certainly update the Hill one that was done, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was done for that so we're gonna do a new traffic study. But, so this road, my understanding is, and I'm not absolutely sure of this, but I think it's 26 feet wide with a Cape Cod berm on each side, or a Cape Cod berm proposed for each side. And so that's, and it's I think, some people disagree with me, I think it's in relatively fair to good shape.
Yeah, other than it's overgrown.
It's overgrown on the side, and the
Yes.
and correct, and we can't do anything about it because it is private. I mean, I don't understand, I mean, the HOA certainly, and I can understand them, there's only 5 of them, and there's 20 other lots. Why should they be responsible? The owner of those other lots should be taking care of that subdivision. And somebody should be getting on that case. But that has nothing to do with us. I can't go in there and clean up, yeah, it's overgrown a little bit. There's no, I mean, there's still plenty of room for emergency vehicle, and you're more than welcome to take a look at the site and everybody else, but it's yeah, it is over, not totally overgrown, but there's vegetation overhanging some of the roadway and so forth, and should be cleaned up, in my opinion. But we can't do that, that's not us.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so we will be proposing a traffic study. And, Christian, is there anything you want to add to what we're going to be doing regarding stormwater and stuff like that?
Could I just ask a question?
Sure.
Staying on the traffic study before we get off of that. Are you proposing, it almost sounds to me like you're proposing to do a traffic study.
Yes.
As opposed to us hiring a person, a consultant to do a traffic study. Am I correct?
Jerry, yeah, that is correct. There again, you would have the peer review firm that you would pick to review the engineering that Christian does, may in their own firm have the capacity to review a traffic report. If not, you may have to get another peer review who specializes in traffic.
Right.
So who would have done the first the initial one. Fowling?
When they were doing the golf, it would be Bradford Dean when they were doing the golf course. We're not gonna, I think,
Oh, I
I don't even
see.
think I don't
You're
even,
going to use the one?
no, we're gonna have a new one.
Okay.
I don't even think they're around
And
anymore.
what I'm saying,
They got bought out.
would that be Fowling, or would it be another company?
Christian does not do traffic studies.
No, there would be a traffic engineer specialist that would do the traffic study for this project.
Yeah, so
You would
they'll take,
you'll contract that out.
Yes,
yeah, so they'll take a look at,
As long as you don't contract to the same person, so it's.
yeah. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add, you know, we talked briefly about waivers, but certainly this project, as an engineer, we have a code of ethics. We're not gonna be cutting any corners when it comes to the engineering, the specifics, the construction standards. This is gonna get fully built out, just like any other roadway in town to meet all requirements, especially in regards to stormwater. Stormwater, that's our number one, most likely priority, is definitely gonna be, you know, a lot of butters here. I know this development's not fully built out, but eventually someday it will be built out. And our goal as an engineer is to make sure that this roadway, and all these dwellings, the runoff from stormwater at the post-development, when this is fully constructed, is gonna be a less runoff than what currently is there right now, which is just a wooded area. So we do that by several different methods. We have detention ponds, which we'll be most likely utilizing. And those ponds will be designed for a 100-year storm event, and they discharge, you know, slowly, so all the water isn't just pouring out. So that's a requirement that we, not only as an engineer, but there's also the state requirements that we're gonna meet. We're gonna design it as a licensed engineer. John's also a licensed engineer. And also that's gonna get reviewed by a third party, another engineer. So there's certainly two eyes on it, an eye for the town and an eye for the abutters as well, just to make sure everything's by code. So there's definitely no, you know, waivers we're seeking like that. As far as the public safety goes, you know, to make sure that roadway is certainly accessible. I would never want to do a development where there's going to be issues with, that would threaten any lives. Certainly as an engineer, that's something we strictly follow. So the roadway will be adequate as far as the width. There will be enough turning for any kind of emergency vehicles. So there's no, what I'm trying to get to, there's no waivers that we're going to be seeking that's going to affect anything like that. The only waivers we're really seeking is because of the density of the project, you know, and it's mostly in regards to zoning, you know, setbacks, lot size, stuff like that. We will have, you know, this is gonna be a great area for people and even the abutting neighbors here to be able to walk this development. There's gonna be sidewalks, there's gonna be benches. So it's gonna be a great, you know, add-on to the private development that's currently there now.
How far is it from the end to 177?
Roughly,
Rough, right?
from where to where? From,
probably
From the last
probably about
house
half
to
a mile
170.
like that.
I'm just thinking that these poor kids in the winter are gonna have to walk all that, right?
well, you know, that's
The
interesting.
buses aren't gonna go pick them up.
Well, we have, I'm not sure, I can't answer that question for the school district, but we are gonna have
Right.
an area out in the front here where the mailboxes,
Oh, okay. I was
common
wondering what that-
mailboxes.
Okay, that's,
And it could be a bus stop there as well. That's something we could, if the board would like, we could definitely talk to the school department, because that, again, that's something where, you know, it could be a public safety, having these kids walk all over the streets, to have one spot, I think is, you know.
Well, I had already spoken to a landscape architect, and one of the things we were talking about is actually, rather than at the cul-de-sac here, is try to have a bus stop or mailbox right over here.
I can't see it.
I'm sorry, right near the,
Right in the front.
Oh,
but it doesn't, but depends on what the school department wants to do. The problem is, they're not, I don't think they're gonna go into Westport Lakes Road, there's only 5 houses there.
yeah,
But when we do 38,
And there's kids, and they more likely will come further, right? If there's more kids.
I think so,
Right.
yeah, I think so, and almost all of our developments we have a bus shelter. And usually that's pretty nice, decorated and that sort of thing.
So is the intent to build all these houses regardless if they're sold, or is it gonna be,
That's-
is the lots, and then someone has to buy them and then they build?
No. The lot, under 40B, you really can't sell a lot and build, because at the under 40B, you have to be what's called a limited dividend organization, and you're only allowed to make X number of dollars. It's 20% plus the 6, 6, and 2 that you're, so it's a limited dividend.
So you are gonna be building out all these
So
houses?
what happens is that, yes, so the developer, I mean, he could, the owner could sell it to another developer, but you can't sell individual lots. I can't sell you a lot and you wanna hire Joe Smith to build your
Yeah.
house, can't do that.
Okay, so, and then, I'm glad you asked that, because I was thinking about, is there like a phase plan in this, or do you build them all?
Well, you don't build them all, I mean,
I mean, you can't build them all tonight, but I mean,
it depends on sales, I mean, and we'd have to look at the phasing, and we'd have to dovetail the phasing with detention and stormwater or that sort of thing, but my thought was to go up and probably go to the left. In other words, if we could, yeah.
no, Attorney Pucci, if I'm not mistaken, even when they do a phase, they have to also phase in the affordability part of it.
Yes.
So if you're gonna build 10 houses, some percentage of them have to be
Supposed
the
to be
affordability versions.
As close to 25% as possible. And then we did a Briggs Landing, we did Briggs Landing in
Okay.
6 or 7 phases.
Right.
Okay,
And each phase, remember, each phase had the 25% affordability.
okay,
And that's something that the building inspector, who is actually the zoning law enforcement officer, takes a look at as we start going through the process.
So
And
there's
there's
a
a little bit of
So the
flexibility.
chance there will not be 38 houses built if you don't have adequate sales.
Well, eventually it'll be, yeah, I mean, of course, you can't build a house and let it sit empty, and you can't rent them.
Right. So you will not build until the house is sold.
No, there'll be some spec.
There'll be some spec houses.
Yeah, so-
There'll be a
so-
phase one, but there.
Yeah,
there may be-
typically what happens is they'll go to a bank, okay, and say, okay, I want to build 5 houses, well, 4 houses at a time. So the bank says, okay, we'll give you a revolving loan, construction loan, and acquisition and all that stuff. So you build 4 or 5 houses, specs. You sell 1, 2, then the bank replenishes that. That's how that works.
I just don't want the same thing happening as where you have all those lots and a homeowners association and not enough of funding to fund the homeowners association properly.
Correct. So what happens is that when we sell the houses, we get 3 months operating reserve in advance. So but you're right, I mean, the first house that's built and sold, there's not enough money to do the snow plowing.
right?
So what happens is that the developer does all this. It doesn't, the HOA really doesn't get rolling until until it's probably halfway built or close to it, because there's just not enough money in the account. But even though the developer may be doing the snow removal and things like that, they're still collecting the money from the HOA, and that has to go into a separate account that's managed, separately from any other funds. And that's how it's done.
And if
So
you
is the
do,
developer paying HOA fees on all the unsold lots while it's
No,
in process?
No. It's as it's phased in, no.
and let me ask you, when it's in the phases that you go, you don't clear cut the whole project and then put in the houses? Do you clear cut all the woods as you go?
As you go.
As you
And it's not, and the lots are, for Westport standards, are on the small side.
Exceptionally small.
Well, except you go to another town, these are pretty big. So it depends, beauty's in the eyes of
You
the
haven't seen
beholder.
my lot.
My lot's small too, and as I'm just,
I live on a 9,000 square foot lot, but anyhow,
Yeah. So, but you don't clear it, you're building it in phases, so you go in there and work in one area and then
correct.
do it one at a time.
Because here you have a well, you need an area for the well and the house, and that sort, so we do it on a lot by, or several lots at a time. We're not gonna go in and clear cut the whole thing.
But that means though, the septic part of it has to be done
Yes.
as if you finished it.
Yeah, and that would be,
Because-
that's correct. The main roadway going up is gonna have to be cleared.
It's gonna have to be finished.
We have, to well, not finished, it's gonna be, binder coat. You don't wanna put.
Okay,
And I think
yes.
that's maybe what is happening on Westport Lakes Road. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing the developer does not wanna put the finished road because he's gonna be selling some lots later on. And equipment has a tendency to.
Break the road.
Break the road, yes.
Wear down the road in
Yeah.
certain areas.
Yes.
But at some point in time, you gotta kinda get off the pot, you know?
I mean, this is all gonna be paved, but just not finished. I mean, not the finished coat.
Correct, we have to make it,
But the septic has to be finished at that point.
correct.
What is the other block there? I see that you've got the septic.
That's a reserve area, so under Title V,
You have
even like an individual house,
Yeah.
you have to have, in case your septic system fails, you have to have another place on your lot.
Right.
To put another one. You know, it's the same thing, it's called the reserve replacement area.
Right, so you use one and then, yeah.
So this set of plans that we have in our booklet, they're just preliminary plans? Or are these plans?
No, they're plans, but.
That's what I thought, I read through them and I go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of,
Looks like actual
there's a lot
plans.
of detail. I mean, we have topography in there, we have the wetland line, I don't know what else is in there, Kristen.
Yeah, I mean, these plans, these basins have been fully designed to handle the flow that's gonna be coming in. The plans are probably, I would say, 75%. They're not construction drawings yet, but they're definitely been a lot of engineering into these plans.
What are these little bags
So
for?
the next,
Wetlands flag.
That's at wetlands. Is this,
It has wetland delineation, it has everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this
Yeah, the
wetland line, as we said, was approved through conservation.
it's approved and was extended as well. So we're pretty far along from that point of view. But the big next step is, as Kristen mentioned, is the stormwater management. That gives a level of comfort that, you know, the water's coming in and it's going certain places and the rate that it's, you know, it's not gonna flood out the neighbors and that takes a lot of work from an engineering point of view to get done.
I have a question about the plans, you were just talking about the plans. I don't know, maybe I don't know how to read them, but some of them show the 38 houses, but this plan here, it looks to me like it's only showing 31 houses, and I'm just wondering why.
Which tab are you on, Roger?
So I think that was the plan.
Is that the by right plan?
So that's a 55 and over.
So when we went through Mass Housing, the site eligibility letter, we had to give them a financial pro forma and all those kinds of things. And so they went out and hired, at the applicant's expense, an appraiser to do an appraisal of the property as is. That is, what is the value of that property without the benefit of 40B? They went out and done that, and they prepared, the engineer prepared a plan that was under the town's 55 and over bylaw, which requires some congregate component. So that's what that plan is.
Okay.
That's why, so
That's the
that.
one that didn't fly with the planning board, as far as the
Well,
comment.
it was going, I mean, Brian Corey was the one who was permitting that, and the developer was not willing to become a congregate facility where they were providing meals and so forth.
Right.
And there was an interpretation of the town's bylaw, because I can show you another 55 and over, they don't have that component.
In Westport.
Yes,
I know that.
okay,
It
so.
was wrongly done by the planning board.
I- Yeah, I'm glad you said that. So that's what happened. So I think someone on the planning board said, hey, wait a minute, this is, you know, there's something screwy here.
Right,
So they withdrew.
okay.
And there was an affordable.
So this
component.
plan really has nothing to do with
No.
this. It really
Nope.
shouldn't even be in here.
Well, no, we want to show what we had done in case some boards will raise the issue of what could have been done by right under.
Because I don't consider this
No, you should,
done by right, if the planning board has said that it doesn't meet that bylaw.
Correct. By right, what they mean is what is allowed on, it might not get approved,
Yeah.
but it's allowed. That's what they consider a by right plan. You should be looking at, I think it's tab 7.
Yes, tab 7 has a whole bunch of,
This is
Yeah.
the one- Which one is your,
Tab 7 sheet,
is it this one?
there's a good one that shows where the affordability, where the affordable units are located. So if you look at 7 of 10,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. 28, 30, okay. How does it get above 30? 30.
so that's the larger version of what you have in your, so it's in tab 7, it's sheet 7 of 10, and the bigger one is up on the easel. So you can see in blue on that plan, and that is where we're proposing the location of all the affordables. So the affordables are supposed to be distributed throughout the development. The ultimate approval of where those are located sits with Mass Housing. So the board can like that location of the affordables, you may want to change it, and we might be willing to change it, but ultimate approval is with Mass Housing as to the location of the affordable.
I think with previous 40Bs, we've had eventual application to swap around
Yes.
some of these lots.
That did happen at Briggs too.
That's, yeah, Briggs was one of them, yeah.
Exactly.
I just wanted to ask Attorney Pucci, are there sureties, bonds allowed under a 40B?
Yes,
To protect the town?
correct, yes.
Who sets those amounts?
Well, it's governed by, you really have to kind of follow state statute on it. So in the event of an approval with conditions, I'll prepare proposed conditions for you on that.
Very good.
Whatever's allowed under the statute, under the bonding, correct?
Yep.
Why'd you name it Goffview Lane?
I'm sorry?
Why is it named Goffview Lane? I was just curious,
I think it was originally, so
that-
that lane was already planned, I think, when they were
but
doing.
it's not, yeah. I
No,
mean-
because Gulfview Lane was the name of the roadway, and it's gonna get changed.
Oh, I was
It was
just
a lane of the
curious.
roadway that was gonna get built if the
With the
golf
golf
course.
course,
was-
yes.
It's the golf course,
Yes.
okay, well, that makes sense,
And that was
but,
part of the approval that they gotten from the planning board for those lot is, where that lot is, so they left the lane.
Okay.
And I'd have to check with Brian Corey, but what I would like to do is do away with that cul-de-sac, the first cul-de-sac, and make it one road all the way up. At the end of Gulf, right there.
yeah, it does make.
Doesn't make sense to have
no, it
that.
doesn't.
Right. But there could be a legal reason for that.
Okay, so,
So here's
what are the
the,
next, if you got much else, what are the next steps?
okay, if you like, when I was explaining how we arrived at the pricing and we wrote all in the mix and come up, this is a typical sales matrix that we have to figure out how to get to the sales price. It's all based on what we had discussed, the 5% down, certain interest rate.
That's in our packet, isn't it?
I don't think that is in your package, no. Heidi, do you know? Yeah, no.
So if you go back to, if you're just looking at where the affordables are
Yes.
listed, if you go your original plan of saying that you're gonna do the first phase over here, you actually have more affordable
Maybe.
housing in that area.
I don't know how many houses are in that left-hand side. We'd have to,
You have about, yeah,
yeah.
you only need 3.5, so you need 4.5, right?
Yeah, so I mean, most likely, it probably will get phased out. Like, this will probably be
Yeah.
phase one. During that phase, and all the infrastructure is usually done, the sewer, the drainage. And then this would probably just be kept gravel until this gets eventually built out. You'll have binder here all the way through, so you're providing adequate access in case for emergency vehicles. And then, so, let's just say, I mean, typically, every 3, we would have to build the affordable. So we would build 3, build the affordable, build 3, build the affordable. And then we would, as we build 3, we may jump into phase 2, but we may come back and do that affordable in phase 1. But typically, I mean, that's the protocol. Every 3, then we gotta build the affordable.
And we worked with the building inspector, I don't know if it's the same inspector or not, on Briggs Landing and
Yeah,
things like that.
he's been around for,
So, the other thing, Christian, I want to show, like, what the fire chief, we need, next step, one of the things we want to meet with the fire chief, to be sure that what they call it,
Turn radius, yep.
he's gonna want us to show on the plan that with his biggest equipment, that he can get around,
Can he-
get around the cul
Can he swing around at all?
That is an issue in Westport,
Yes.
yeah.
So that's something we'd certainly we would meet with him, you know, informally, to make sure he can provide a letter in support of the project.
Of course, they need bigger and bigger
Absolutely.
equipment.
We also have a local bylaw, I'm not that familiar with it because we don't deal with it, but the length of a dead end
Yeah,
type
that's a
of
waiver
road
we're
and so
asking.
forth, so we have to make sure that we're dealing with that as well.
And I'm
I
not
guess
so
you're-
sure from,
You well within that, I think it's like 1,800 feet or so.
1,200, I told you.
12?
Yeah, so those are the waivers that we may be seeking.
Well, that's what I'm
If we're-
wondering,
if we're
if it would be a
beyond that.
waiver.
And we'll have a full list of waivers we can certainly go over with you as well.
we only have one means of egress into the site.
Yeah.
So the next step would be, I think, to continue the hearing. And how long do you think it would take to do some stormwater management and stuff like that?
To finish up the stormwater, we're probably about, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks out, finalize the drainage report.
What would, in the meantime, we can discuss maybe peer review?
Peer review, right.
Do you have any names?
No, I have somebody that we have suggested from the planning board. So I'll work with the planning board to see who they've used in the past. I'll also work with Attorney Pucci from the state level to see, you know, if they have any appropriate personnel that could assist. And I agree that I'd like them to be at least reasonably local so that they understand you know, this is different than Boston. What we need to do, though, is obviously, you're gonna need to set aside a sum of money, you know, like $5,000 kind of money. That's, I think generally what we start with, that would be, so you write a check to the town for a consultant, and then we would then pull from that, and then if there was any left, obviously, you would get it back. If we needed more, we would have to ask for it.
5,000, there won't be anything left.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have to really think about it, Mr. Chair, if I can just interject.
Yes.
So either discuss it tonight or maybe at the next hearing session, the board really wants to discuss amongst yourselves what peer review expertise you'll be seeking. I mean, the way I saw it tonight would be stormwater, you know, you want to look at the report from the
Yes.
engineer, that after, you want to get an ETA on the traffic study that the applicant is doing, because you want a peer review of that.
Yes,
I was also thinking potentially you need like a wetlands consultant in this case. You know, again, to the extent you can not reinvent the wheel between boards, you know, if the Conservation Commission is contemplating a wetlands expert that they like to use, you know, you might want to consider that person. But it certainly looks like they're going to be needing waivers under the local wetlands bylaw, so that's something at least that I'm kind of seeing at this point. And you can do it in a number of ways. You can either get some proposals from specific consultants. If you have anybody local that you like to use, either planning board or conservation commission or your own board, you might want to think about that peer reviewer, depending on what subject matter that they can handle.
right.
So maybe, and the other thing you want as a preliminary matter is to get all the department comments back to you. Even if they can't comment fully yet, you do want to get at least their preliminary comments. It is entirely appropriate for the applicant to be speaking with the fire department. They don't get to control the process. Fire department's gonna weigh in the way they see fit.
Yep.
But certainly if the applicant can provide information to them so that they can meaningfully comment to you, you know, you want that to be part of your process, to be able to discuss it, and then further
Would it be
questions.
productive for us to be a part of the meeting that they have with the fire chief, for
If you
example?
want, what I would, if.
That way we hear
If
what
you,
else.
sometimes it can be hard logistically, it's easier to schedule meetings, the less people, if you do it, have just one
One
representative of the
representative,
board.
yeah.
Otherwise, you're making a subcommittee.
Yes.
So just have one representative of the board, and then that representative could always report back in public at your
Yeah.
next hearing session.
Right.
It's a good way to get things.
So they can maybe schedule the meetings and then amongst ourselves, if one of
Pick
us is
somebody,
available. Or
exactly.
if one of us happens to be available that
Yeah.
time, then that person
Yeah.
would go, and maybe another meeting, somebody else would go. Just-
Exactly, that's fine. Yep,
That's
that would be fine.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did at Briggs Landing. I think
Yeah.
Roger, I
Yeah.
think you, and then,
And then again, you're not, there's no backroom deal. Everything that gets done
That's what I
comes
like.
back to the full board at the public hearing.
Right,
That,
Yeah.
okay, we discussed X, Y, Z on X date, you know, here's what came as a result of that, and then you vet that information. in the
Sometimes they
public hearing.
conveniently forget to tell us something, you know? And this way, at least
Yeah.
we can hear it.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, when we've done 40Bs a long time ago, we were able to get some financial assistance from the applicant for legal fees. I've read more recently where I believe a court case in 2008 or something made it so that we couldn't get legal fees anymore, just the professional
Right.
things. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I saw the applicant's position on that, I agree with it. Yeah, the town has to pay for me.
Right.
Fortunately for you.
Yep.
You don't get to include me in peer
We
review
used to.
funded by the applicant. You used to be able to,
Yeah.
you can't anymore.
That's in here.
In what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was
Yes.
Well, that's the applicant's position, but I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I agree with it. It's definitely the state of the
That's why I
law.
brought it up.
Yeah.
It's also in here.
Yep.
We've all read this.
yes, it is.
For board
read
members
that
too,
too
just,
today.
if, that, that booklet that Roger just had, even though it's from 2017, is very useful for you to
Right, I
look at on
agree.
your own time.
I looked at it today.
Yeah.
And how does the new governor's, housing act play into any of this at all? Nothing?
It doesn't.
We can- it's-
It doesn't impose anything further or lesser.
I guess the only other thing would be the ADUs of matter of right, something we may have to
using
deal
what?
with.
Yeah.
80 years.
As a matter of a right on a small lot like that.
Yeah, he's not seeking anything like that, so,
But no, once they own it,
yeah.
they can do what they want.
But we still have to meet the septic, so the number of bedrooms.
Yeah.
We can't add another bedroom. if
Oh,
we
yeah,
already
true,
have
once
extra
it's done,
capacity.
it's done, it's good,
Yeah.
it's a,
Exactly.
it's a,
Yeah.
We're
Well,
we're at
it-
9,990 gallons, I
Yeah.
think, is what we're at. and You can't be over 10,000,
it
so.
could
Yeah.
decommission, but.
So that would, if I may, Mr. Chairman, make a comment regarding conservation. We have the wetland line approved. We'll have to take a look at the waivers to discuss that. But there's nothing more that we're gonna be doing, that's all approved. So there's nothing more we're gonna be
It's all
doing
approved by who?
by the Conservation Commission.
So you have a letter from the conservation.
Oh, yeah, it's on file, yes, we have
In red.
an NRAD that is approved by where the wetlands are. So now what will happen is, so I don't think there's much more other than if we're asking for a waiver, asking them what they think. I don't know if we need a special consultant for that, because we're not filing, we're not altering any wetlands or any resource.
But if you're asking for a waiver for it,
No, we may be asking for a waiver, so it's appropriate, I think, if we're asking for a waiver to the 50-foot, if that's, the 50-foot, then I think the agent can, I'll leave that up to you. I don't think you need an expert for that. Because what'll happen is that, once the development is approved, we will have to file a notice of intent with the, so we're within, anytime you're within 100 feet of a wetland line, under the state law, Is that correct? Under the state law, a Conservation Commission has jurisdiction. So we have to file a notice of intent. This is what we plan on doing. Then the board has to say, they give us an order, okay, you can do it under this order of conditions. So they allow us, and they have to, I think, allow us to build, but they're under certain conditions, and it's under their jurisdiction. And my understanding is that's a state law, we can't deviate from that.
Right.
But the local law, as far as setback, we could.
Just
could
just
ask
to
for-
clarify,
Yeah.
the ANRAD he referred to as an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. So that's no approval, it just means that they've done a proposal for where those wetland lines are located, and they got that approved.
Right.
So
Okay.
you've got a.
We've
you'd be
delineated
able-
where the-
You would be able to look at a plan and it shows the
yeah.
wetland lines.
Okay.
It's on these plans too.
So,
Right.
but, this was what I was getting at earlier. If they need a filing under the State Wetlands Protection Act, they will make that filing, the Conservation Commission will act on it. But the commission, because of 40B, will not have jurisdiction over your local wetlands bylaw. So
Right.
I'm not telling you that you're in any position to be talking about it tonight, but you want it to be part of your process. So I agree it's reasonable to assume that your conservation agent can be your first one to weigh in on that.
Okay.
Yes, and even have them in. I don't know, I apologize, it's my first time to your beautiful town. I don't know your local officials. Typically, in a case that I would have the agent weigh in, even possibly come and meet with you and at a hearing and describe the site and what the concerns are and make recommendations. Then when you go from there, you can determine whether a consultant is warranted under the circumstance. Say you have a 50-foot no disturb zone under the wetlands bylaw. They would need a waiver from it, maybe, depending on the location of the roadway in certain areas and where that boundary is. So you want to, again, you use it or lose it, because if you don't cover it in this process,
Right.
it's forever waived.
Right.
So it's information that you want to have come out of this process, but it may well be a big part of your process.
Okay.
It looks like they have a substantial, areas of wetlands that you're going to have to deal with setbacks and performance standards potentially for that zone.
And there's at least 20 potential, of
Waivers.
those conditions.
Yeah,
Right.
notice of it, yeah.
There's at least
And
20.
you can see- Yeah, you can see on the colored plan here, that is the wetland line, so you can see everything to the, I guess that would be to the west of the road that we're proposing. I don't think any of those would need to file, but there are some below that on the right-hand side that we have to file, and also for the detention basin, in some cases, we may have to file as well.
So I just texted a friend on the Concom, and he said that, I asked him if we have a wetland setback, and he said, yes, a 25-foot buffer zone. Perennial streams are around 100 feet.
We don't have a perennial storm, so there's a 25-foot. So what we would try to do is, what I typically try to do, I will ask Kristen to see where we really need that setback, or if we're within the 25 feet. And it might be just one or two lots. So then we would amend the waiver to say, we need a waiver for the 25 feet on lots 3 and 5, not on the whole subdivision. That's the way I usually like to, and we'd have to take a look at that. I don't know which ones would or would not apply. So there is a 25-foot do not
Buffer.
touch. Is it a buffer or a do not touch?
It says buffer zone. That's
Okay,
what he
that's a
said.
little different, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think-
Buffer zone is different from a no-touch. So State Wetlands Protection Act does not treat the 100-foot buffer zone to a wetland resource as a resource area. So they only treat bordering vegetated wetland itself as the resource area, then the 100 feet to it is not resource area. It may require filing, and you look at any potential adverse effects, but it's not a resource area. Local bylaws typically will, because they have to be more restrictive to be valid, they will treat that 100-foot zone as a resource area that requires a filing and findings and and waivers, depending on what is being sought. That part, you have to exercise the jurisdiction over. And then, in addition to the buffer zone, in that 100 feet or even 200 feet to a riverfront, if there's that type of resource area, there are sometimes in local bylaws and regulations, no-touch zones, 25-foot, 50-foot. And if you're in those areas, you need a waiver, and you need to justify the performance standards why you're entitled to that waiver, why it should be granted. And the applicant's suggestion at the beginning sounds reasonable under the circumstances. It may end up that if there is a no-touch zone of 25 feet, they may only be encroaching on it in a couple of areas of the project. And then you can take that into consideration and you'll act on that eventually. But you're not at the point yet that you're able to meaningfully discuss it. You know, again, first instance, somebody from Conservation Commission should be submitting, you know, formally commenting on the project
Right.
To you, even if it's just to raise unanswered questions that they might have that you want to vet in your process.
We have not received any comments from the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, so what I'd recommend maybe between now and the next hearing session, in addition to whatever the applicant's doing, and the applicant can update you, say he's doing the traffic study, he can tell you when to expect it, who's doing it. The engineer is going to be working on a stormwater management report, but something I think is very important between now and your next hearing session, try to gather as many local comments as you can, that you can then be in the position to discuss that at your next hearing session.
Could I ask, at the beginning of your presentation, Paul, you indicated some potential issues in the past, endangered species, possibly native artifacts and so forth. Are they not in the picture anymore? Have they been cleared?
Yes, they've been signed off on the report, and we could give you a copy of the.
That's what I was gonna say. You have some-
I could get you, I know I can get you the archaeological report that discussed artifacts and that sort of thing, and that was done by PAL, Public Archaeological Laboratories. We can get you that. And we do have, I have to look at it to see, there was a report by, this goes back to 2008 and before that. That time, the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, on an impact report, but this had to do with the golf course and that sort of thing.
Right.
So at that point in time, there was a notice that there was a four-toed salamander or something issued someplace on the site, but that got delisted, so the, what I call the,
You said
now,
that
they
was
found it.
200 acres.
Yeah,
It's not even in this site.
correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
I just don't want to get halfway through this and somebody comes up and says, oh, there's a salamander over there, and now everything's
I'd
stopped.
like to stop somebody from saying whatever, but, yeah, from my point of view, that's all,
Yeah,
that-
but if we saw something in writing, it would be
you
good
got
for the
it, you
record.
got it right here, you just showed it to me.
Yeah,
But you don't have the Public Archaeological Laboratory, I
Right,
will
the
get
one
you,
that you
I will get you that,
want the artifacts.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think the attorney brought up, a good thing too, is just to work with the conservation if they have a peer review consultant. Because like I said, like Paul said, we have to file with conservation anyway. And I would be glad to meet with them informally, just like I'm gonna with the fire chief as well. If anybody from the
Well,
board wants to be here.
what would be helpful is when you have a meeting with any town official, notify Maria,
Absolutely.
and then she will appoint one of us to go, and, so that we can be part of that, if somebody is available, so that we all we're all at the same level.
Yep, yeah, we'll definitely be coordinating these meetings in the next week or two.
Sometime that board may want something from this board, saying, yeah, you can meet with them. Thanks.
Yeah.
But the
So,
fire chief should not be a problem.
When would you propose the next hearing, and what topics do you think we would be ready to cover? I assume,
I'd like to
gonna be-
decide, I'd like you to decide on the peer review. So we can maybe do that while he's not gonna be finished for 4 or 5 weeks. So we're not gonna, and then we gotta submit it to the peer review. So there's no sense in having a meeting, in my opinion, on the on the stormwater management unless your guy has looked at it also.
okay, yeah. So we have to
I mean, we
actually,
could come in and explain it to you,
yes.
but then you're gonna say.
Then I'm gonna turn it over to our consultant, who's gonna go through the whole,
Yeah.
right, right.
So,
Yes.
So I think it's important to get the peer review lined up.
Lined up,
But the first one is gonna be for the stormwater.
Correct.
Well, I think we want to hopefully confine a firm, I don't think there's one locally, but that can do stormwater
And traffic?
and traffic. Because those are the two main, in my opinion, the two main consultants. But if that's not the case, then we may have to find a separate traffic.
traffic from
You know,
stormwater.
I mean, so Josh can give you some names. I got some names of a lot of traffic people and so is Christian, so we.
Yeah, the point of tonight's meeting was to show you the layout. The layout shouldn't change, so that the lots themselves, the stormwater areas, everything's been, designed to a point where we know it's not gonna change. The only things that may change, you don't have the full topography proposed, all the utilities and stuff like that. Mostly all technical stuff, that the peer review consultant's gonna be reviewing anyway. We just wanted to give you an overview of, the density of the project, the lot sizes, the dwellings. Go over if you had any concerns,
Yeah.
questions with this right now. So we can try to make any changes before we go full speed with the total stormwater design.
Okay. The other thing that we're probably gonna spend at least one session on is all the waivers. But I'm hearing now, it sounds like we don't even know what necessarily all the waivers are gonna be. So that's not something that we're gonna do in the next, that's probably a little bit later on.
We could probably have a list at the next meeting.
Excuse me?
We can probably have a good list of the waivers at the next meeting.
Well, we have a list now.
Yeah.
You have a list now, but,
But, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but I'd rather go through the plans and get the plans to the point where the engineers are okay with it. All right, and then, that's what we want to build. And that's what the board hopefully will approve. So, what I usually like, my waiver list typically on the top paragraph says, here's our list of waivers. However, it's very easy for us to miss subparagraph 2 or subparagraph 3 on some report. So we say, the waivers are for what was approved. So in my,
I'm still not getting it. but go
in
ahead.
other words, the setback requirements, the size of the lots, all of those things. And there may be some things on other waivers that are on the plan. So I think waiver list, it would come later.
Okay.
As,
Well, I don't want to get in a situation where you're doing a lot of work, assuming that we're going to approve a waiver, and we don't, and that forces you to go back and replan everything.
or there are other options that we have, but, yeah, I mean, we could, maybe we should take a hard look at that.
I think we should,
Yeah.
I mean, if there's any.
At least where the hard points are going to be. There are some waivers that are more administrative than,
Yes.
than things like setbacks and,
Well, not
the
only
hardcore
that,
ones.
we have to go before the planning board for that's a waiver,
right,
right? Because we're here, we're not there.
right.
But those are administrative.
Those are administrative,
Right.
yes, and that's by state law almost. I
Right,
mean,
but
that's,
that's
what a 40B is.
That's in the list.
right, right.
Yeah, the big waivers, so it don't change any of the engineering, or the setbacks, front setbacks, the frontage, the lot areas.
Right.
Those are the big ones.
Yes,
Where, we don't want to go 100% and all of a sudden, someone says,
I don't,
I think
yes,
the lot should be
Yeah.
20,000 square feet instead of 10. That's a big deal.
yes,
So if any of those concerns, now's a good time to,
right, setbacks,
Now.
we have, 25 feet from the front, 10 from the side, 6 from the back, and if you don't meet that, then you need a variance.
yeah, so we
We need a
have,
waiver.
we have the
Not a
proposed,
variance.
Because this is a 40B.
Right,
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, but you're not ready to talk about waivers yet.
Okay.
No,
You need a lot more information. The applicant's gonna have to,
Right.
do some homework.
That's what I was thinking, as I was listening to it, it sounded like originally, it said, well, gee, we ought to understand the waivers first, but you really need to go through your whole process first,
Yeah.
so we
Waivers-
understand what the real, what the actual.
Waivers, definitely, you need one or two even hearing sessions for it. It typically wouldn't come until later in the
Till later on,
process.
okay.
Well, if I may, I mean, Christian's got a very valid point. Why go through all the effort of stormwater management and so forth, like, and you say, we want the lots to be 60,000 square feet? Or we want the lots to be this. So we're wasting our time and our money, and your time.
Can we request the lot size to be bigger? Or is
You don't
that-
have enough information right now for it. I mean,
we're not-
anything that you ask for has to be evidence-based,
Yeah.
and all you have now is just a preliminary presentation. So you haven't really vetted this enough to say, no, these lots are too small for legitimate reasons based on evidence on the record. You have to vet the project more before you can do that.
A legitimate reason.
I mean,
would be
the applicant has got to, they have to act at their own risk to a certain point. I
Yes.
mean, you assume that they're in good faith, that they looked at this, they are consulting with an engineer, they think they have a good plan, it's something that requires minimum waivers, or if it requires an extensive waiver of something, it can be justified. They put a project together, they put it before you, and then you vet it. It's not for you to say, oh, well, I'd like 20,000 square foot lots, or I'd
Right.
like this or that. You may get to that later on in the process, but you're not.
That would be stormwater and traffic issues.
Exactly.
that
Say they
dictate the size of-
jam the site, they can't really legitimately
Right.
put in the
But if-
infrastructure.
Yeah,
Or it
but-
threatens flooding or some type of issue, or fire department weighs in and says, no, this is too long of a dead-end roadway, I can't move my ladder truck, things like that. Then you can
Then you
start
can
to
say,
talk
right.
about that.
What
But
about the issue of denitrification as opposed to Title V?
that's another issue. I don't have enough information yet to be able to give you an opinion on that, but, and I'll have to look at,
Sitting there sitting next
do
to
you have
someone.
local provisions that are more restrictive than the state requirements that would go before the Board of Health? Then you want the Board of Health weighing in.
Right,
They have it on new construction.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look at your local
But so-
regulations. And just one thing respectfully different from the applicant, and he's not being weird proposing this to you, because I get applicants that try to do it that way a lot of times, is they'll say, they have a specific waiver list, and then they'll say, oh, but, if there's a waiver that we wouldn't think of that's depicted on the plan, that'll be deemed granted. That's not how I do it.
Right.
So any waiver that you're granting is going to be spelled out in the
Spelled out in
permit. And I also have a catch-all provision of anything not specifically granted in this
Not allowed.
spreadsheet is denied.
Right.
And it doesn't mean the applicant can't come back. They can come back with a project change. So it's, none of this is ever like an end game, but there are just, ways that I would recommend doing it, that you don't grant, to the extent it's depicted on the plan, but we didn't think of it, it'll be deemed granted. We don't do it that way.
Yes. But the denitrification, that's something that we should,
Yeah.
again, we send the plans to the health department, and we should be also meeting with the health department to say, okay, here's their plan,
Health
pretty much a
department-
standard septic
Health
system.
Department should be sending you back a letter saying,
I,
here's what's required under this.
yes, Yes.
And they list it out.
From our standpoint, waiving minimum setback requirements, front sides and rears, changes the intensity, of the site itself. In other words, it reduces it, it also reduces that requirement that he has to make money.
Well, remember, you
There's
can't,
something involved
yeah,
in that.
you can't reduce density for the sake of reducing density. So again,
He's already got site plans there with setbacks and all that now.
that's what I'm saying.
And that change, if we change it to 20,000,
Then
that
changes
changes the
Oh, we're not-
intensity.
But what I'm
We can't-
saying is, you're assuming a modicum of good faith from the developer. They're coming in, they think they know roughly what they can do on this site.
Right.
Within reason, they're proposing that to you, then you're gonna vet it. Typically, those are the types of issues that if this is a project that they can meet stormwater standards and they have it safe and it's not gonna adversely affect the neighbors or cause contamination and things like that, typically waivers of setbacks and typical zoning requirements, yeah, you would typically waive them. And you're specific about it. You allow so many feet, as a waiver. Those types of common zoning provisions, that's what 40B is really about. You're looking at it kind of from a site plan review perspective, and you're granting reasonable waivers of dimensional requirements, density, things like that. But the nitty-gritty gets into, these technical issues, like denitrification or stormwater management, safety of the roadway, the ability of a ladder truck to turn around.
Right.
So,
And density isn't always a bad thing. I mean, then they don't have to clear cut more acreage.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. If it ends up that I have had boards condition, they've ordered reduction in density if it's tied to something causally related. In other words, no, this is too dense, you can't fit in your stormwater management system. And
Right.
you're basing that on expert opinion. So that would be an instance where you would have a legitimate reason to say, no, you need larger lot size or you need less density on the project. But you can't approach it from sort of a general perspective, oh, I'd like a smaller project, or I'd like
Right.
larger lot sizes. And like you say, if the project is appropriate and it doesn't adversely affect the town or health and safety issues, yeah, possibly the denser the better
Right.
in there, so.
Okay.
If I may, along the same lines, we approach this from the point of view, from an engineering point of view. From our point of view, if it works for engineering, then the density and everything else should be allowed. If it doesn't work, then we know, but we feel pretty confident that it does work. But I refer you to page 8 of 10 of the site plan.
We were there
Do you
earlier.
have a book?
Yeah,
There were
no, I
seven,
don't have
10.
a book, but
I
I
can
have this stuff.
You want one?
Was it?
We were 7
No,
and
I'm
10
fine.
before, now we're 8 and 10.
No.
So you can see where John and Christian, what they did is they put and this is the way we did Briggs Landing, and this is the way I typically like to do it. You can see we have the different layouts of the different houses on that sheet. But then there's also a dotted line. And I call that there's a dotted line
Around each house.
around each house.
Oh, yeah.
You see, okay, so, and I call that the building area. So what happens, that dotted line is the setbacks that we're requesting. So even though we have a particular style house, so let's say later on, somebody wants to add on to the deck.
Right.
Technically, if we don't have that, or they have to come back to the ZBA. So they'd be coming back, 38 people would be coming back to the ZBA and say, I want to add a deck, because you would have to give them approval. But if the board allows this building envelope, anything to happen within that building envelope, the building inspector could issue a building permit. So that's on this plan here, that's blown up. So typically, that's, am I right, John, that when you did the waivers? So we did the waivers based on that building block.
Okay. Yeah, that's, okay. I can understand that. But we've always had problems in the past with, especially side, you need to have enough side space to get a vehicle in the back to do work. So, and especially like, if you have depending upon how your septic system's laid out,
Well, we don't have a septic system here, see,
you don't, you don't have any holding tanks.
No, well, yes,
You've got to have holding
there'll
tanks.
be a tank,
There'll be a tank.
correct.
And, anyway, that's something we'll have to look at,
So
because making that so restrictive that you're,
What did we ask for a side, you know?
Yes, for
They're
10
20
for
feet-
side.
20 feet in the front, 10 on the side.
10's on the
30
side.
in the, 30 in
This
the
10
rear.
is our standard, and 30, they're doing it 30 feet in the back, which, or back setback is only 6.
yeah,
Yeah, we mostly did 30 in the back to give the neighbors a
Yeah, yeah,
buffer
right,
in the
yeah.
back, because that's probably the only area where there's people abutting the project. So
okay.
that was the reason.
Where is that dotted line defined in the plan? Where it actually says what that dotted line does? I see the dotted line, but where does it say that that's our building
So it says it here, proposed setbacks, building setback lines.
Okay.
And if,
And then on the front cover sheet too, we show the proposed setbacks.
at our age, we need magnifying glass sometimes, but you can.
I'm just concerned that a building inspector, 20 years from now, is gonna look at this and
Yeah.
is gonna.
Well, first of all, he's gonna have a full-blown set of plans. He's not gonna have 11 by 17. Right?
He's gonna
There's gonna be
he's
plans
have
for
the
each lot.
conditions too, the board.
I'm sorry?
There'll be plans eventually for each lot as we build.
Yes, that would be based on, so
Yeah.
we're coming in for a building permit on lot number 3. Is gonna have a lot plan just for that building number 3. He doesn't give the, and like here, it says 10 feet on the plan. So it gets, from that point of view, we've found this in almost every town to work well. From a point of view of not having to go back all the time to the ZBA.
Okay.
I have a
Works for us.
question. I think a big concern, is going to be the accessing this project across the existing roadway, the one that has 5 houses on it or whatever, and their homeowners association. And I don't know about the legalities of that, but I just wonder, is there ever, I'm thinking of affordability for the people who currently live there and for the people who will eventually live there. Is there any legality of combining or merging homeowners associations so as that in the larger number, they don't have a larger expenditure of maintaining or plowing a street, but they have a lot more people helping to pay for it. And I'm just wondering, is that even
Yeah, not really.
feasible?
No, not really. This is
Because
gonna
I'm
be a
concerned that these
standalone
people-
project.
On the
Yeah.
entrance road, I'll call it, to get to that, are gonna be taking the brunt of this, and the
Which
maintaining
would
of
be increasing
it.
their costs, right? Not for plowing, but for maintaining.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what the applicant is proposing on it. Again, your real
Yeah.
substantive consideration is the safety and adequacy of that roadway to serve as access to this project.
But we don't wanna get involved in a fight later on.
Well, you wouldn't. You don't have jurisdiction over, you don't have jurisdiction over the ownership. If he has a project eligibility letter, which he does, he's an eligible applicant. But you can look at it substantively. I mean, it begs the question, what is going on? If it's, and I'm not disparaging anybody, but if it's the same owner that has that ownership of that private roadway and, yeah, I don't know, but it would be nice as part of your process, is just sort of the give and take on this, to find out more about that. What is the story with it? Are they planning on building it? Is the applicant saying it's adequate as is? Are they proposing improvements? That's not answered.
Traffic said, but they may find out that road isn't adequate.
You could,
You may.
yeah, so it would be helpful to the applicant, because it would help you, for the applicant to be able to provide you further information on these issues.
We certainly will have our traffic engineer provide a letter to the to the board stating that road is adequate.
This is something I was gonna ask you, another thing, but this sort of brings it, which I thought was too soon, but this sort of brings it in. My fear is that there's gonna be somebody in your development who is gonna get upset about perhaps something going on the other road, which is another homeowners association, has their own rules, and we have their rules. And then instead of dealing between the homeowners associations, they come to us, or they come to the police, or they come to the, wherever. And we've had that before. We've had something specifically in a homeowners association, that this homeowners had a remedy, but instead of using that remedy, they came to us and cost us a lot of money.
Yes.
Well, what you're gonna just have to do, and you'll be looking to me
Got a lot
to a
of
certain
headaches.
extent for this, is you're gonna want enforceable conditions in your permit. And then that is the law for this. So whatever anybody might have a complaint about from this development is governed by the conditions of this permit. Never mind what the homeowner says. They'll have to, whatever they enact will have to be consistent with your conditions of approval. That's what I'm saying. Ultimately, you're gonna need more information on this stuff so that you can adequately condition the permit.
I suggest that, and I don't know how many of the board members have been on that road.
I
It-
was just there. Yes.
In my opinion, it's certainly adequate and, for fire, police, and all that
Yes.
sort of thing. Yeah, it should be trimmed. It's 26 foot wide, and it's gonna, and the binder course, if that's what it is in fairly good shape. It just needs to be beautified, it really was. But let the police chief give you his comment, or the fire chief. I mean, I don't think there are any issues at all of getting any vehicle. I mean, I've been down that road several times in my car and go down the end, turn around, I see that nice house on the right-hand side, being built, turn around and leave. I took my wife up there, and I mean, so the road is in as good a shape as many other roads in town.
My concern about that is, this is a very large amount of construction, which involves very heavy concrete trucks and all of that, and it breaks up this roadway for these people who have nothing to do with it. They probably don't even want it there. And so they're gonna be stuck with the expense of that, and I don't think that's fair. But I think also a merged homeowner association, if it were possible legally, would help everybody, because it spreads any costs out.
Yeah, I don't think that would work.
Yeah.
I mean, the conversely, if you're one of the other houses, why should you be sharing in?
Right,
You know,
exactly. You did, yeah.
Right.
So
Why
I
would you
don't, I
want
don't,
to?
I don't, but to your point about the pavement being.
The damage.
That's a very, very good point. What we've done in other subdivisions, we've had an engineer, in photographs and so forth, we take the picture of that road and get someone to take a look at it before we stop. And then when we're done, and we set aside a part of the
Yeah,
bond.
yeah, exactly. A lot of times, there's set asides for you to fix anything you might have broken
Yes.
on the way.
Absolutely. And that's fair to the HOA
Yeah.
on Westport Lakes Road. And the developer would not have a problem with that.
Right
And
now,
that could be a condition in the permit.
we
Yeah,
don't have
it would
any,
behoove the applicant to think about these issues. He's heard your initial concerns, and they can either try to satisfy your concerns during the process or not. And then however it shakes out,
I mean,
you'll,
there again, we can agree upon it, but that would be a condition, no matter what I say or what I mean, you have your own mind, and that's a condition I've seen in many homes.
are there existing town records showing the actual makeup of that roadway? What, you
I
know,
would think so.
Yeah, there should be approved plans of that
As-built.
subdivision. I don't know if there's as-built, but there's certainly an approved
Because to
subdivision.
me, that's a big deal.
But they would've gone-
If there's, well, right now, we don't know what that road is built like underneath the surface that you see. So if you have traffic for 5 houses, that's one thing. But when you start having traffic for 40 houses or more, that's something quite different. And so what might look adequate today to us, just seeing it from the surface, looks fine. But then when we have all this stuff going on, but, which goes to your point, if we have photographs, fine. But
Well, we have engineering
we,
reports.
Yeah,
and-
we
well,
want to know what's underneath there.
The traffic study should
Yeah.
take care of that.
I mean, the other thing, just so that you know, that road was designed and built for the golf course that had thousands of day trips and the 60 or 70 condos that they were proposing. It's a hell of a lot more than 38 houses that what we're proposing. So it was supposedly designed, and now it was designed, whether it was built as designed is another thing, I guess.
Right.
But I would think that the planning board you should ask them, or they should give you your comments, or that would be a request that, I mean, we'd be glad to help you out, but that we should ask for a report, or, I don't know, plans.
An as-built.
Because I don't think there was, my guess is that there was no as-built. Because it's not complete.
Okay, so, when do you want to schedule the next hearing?
I would like a couple of weeks to discuss peer review. And I think that maybe a month after that, to give Christian time to do his report and send it to whoever you select as a peer review, maybe, so it's up to you. So if we're looking at 2 weeks from now, and then that's.
So you think that 2 weeks from now, we come here to primarily discuss what kind of peer review is required and,
If it requires a meeting, I don't know whether, do they require a meeting to select the peer review?
Sometimes you want to, sometimes you don't.
okay?
It doesn't sound like you're ready to, it sounds like you need to do more work about getting proposals and figuring out who you want to use and then bring it back to the board. I don't feel comfortable doing that offline. That's certainly the case. I'm happy to assist. You know, I can assist you, Mr. Chair, and the administrator, and you can start to explore potential peer reviewers. And also you can check with your local boards about, like, planning board or conservation, about who they might recommend. You can think about it. You can get proposals and maybe bring it back to the board at the next hearing session, and then and that's in your control. You select them. You're encouraged under the regulations to cooperate with the applicant, and certainly don't come up with some outlandish proposal that's not cost-effective, but the selection is your jurisdiction purely. The applicant doesn't get to veto who you're selecting.
Okay,
So we can have another meeting to discuss amongst ourselves who's
That's-
gonna peer review,
in-
but the applicant doesn't need necessarily be here.
Yeah, well, no, if you're meeting as a quorum, you want it as a formal continued public hearing session. You don't have to,
What I meant, we could have it as a public hearing, but without the applicant about who we're gonna choose
you
for.
have that discussion amongst yourselves. If you want to ask his input, you're free to get it. Again, the regulations do talk about trying to cooperate with the applicant on it, but ultimately, the decision is yours. It sounds like you have a lot of unanswered questions and things you want to look into before you actually decide amongst yourselves who you want to select. So it sounds like something you want to bring back for the hearing.
Could you expand a little bit on, you know, we don't have carte blanche to make the developer do any of these things. About the part of where this has got to be, anything we want to do, or have the developer do, has to be economically feasible for the developer.
That's a different issue.
Yeah.
That, economic feasibility, unless and until the applicant tells you that you're imposing a condition that makes the project uneconomic, then economics are gonna come up. Peer review economics are a different issue entirely. So peer review, all you have to do is find qualified peer reviewers with sufficient technical qualifications on the technical issues you're seeking to retain them on. And so those are issues like engineering, traffic, wetlands, areas that you require expertise that cannot be answered by your own internal departments, you know, with sufficient expertise. Once you determine those consultants, the regulations encourage you to cooperate with the applicant, that if, you know, the going rate for, say, a civil engineer for a certain scope of work is $10,000, and they're proposing $50,000, it's something you want to think about and try to be within reason. So, but if you're looking at qualified individuals on technical issues within your jurisdiction, typically their proposals will not be outlandish.
My comment was not about that. My comment was more about, I don't want the public to think that we can put whatever conditions we want to on the developer without limit. because the developer can claim that certain things that we may want to have would make the project uneconomical.
And
And the
so
burden
it's a good point, yeah.
is with us, because we don't have 10% of our housing.
Right, the burden of proof will be for you, if, but again, project economics only comes up when you try to, you say to the applicant, we're gonna impose this condition, or we're gonna deny this waiver, and then the applicant says, well, that renders my project uneconomic. And then you can say, well, you need to prove that to us. And then they produce a pro forma to show why it's uneconomic. Typically, that's not how it happens. Typically, what happens is, you end up with a decision, an unhappy applicant appeals to the Housing Appeals Committee,
And they
and they say it's
overturn
uneconomic there,
Right.
and that's the first time you see a pro forma.
That's it.
It's very difficult. And so, in terms of the parameters that Jerry is getting at, and it's good for the public to know too, and I'm not a developer's attorney, I represent only municipal permitting boards in 40Bs. It doesn't mean I'm against developers, it just means I'm not coming from the perspective of representing developers. But what people do, what I do advise boards, especially if there's the public interested in a particular project, is the 40B process, you're not required to grant waivers or give carte blanche to a development proposal. But what you want to do is be reasonable. And you want to treat it not unequally to other development proposals. And so you do want to be reasonable in this process. You want to have a give and take with the applicant, have a reasonable discussion. What you don't want to end up happening is having the Housing Appeals Committee, which is where the developer will take your appeal, end up being the town's permitting authority.
Right.
Because they don't say, oh, you were incorrect on conditions X, Y, Z, we're gonna remand it to you and give you another chance. They just issue a boilerplate permit that has very little requirements, nothing really to do with your local concerns. They just grant that permit. You have the ability to appeal that to court, but if you were unreasonable in your process and they were justified in overturning you and issuing this kind of boilerplate permit, chances are a court will uphold them as being within their discretionary authority. So it's, again, it's not all doom and gloom. I've won cases at the HAC, I've won cases on appeal of HAC decisions when they were beyond the scope of their regulations. But I'm telling you, if there's a situation where one party is clearly being unreasonable or beyond the parameters of the law and the regulations, courts will uphold the board being reasonable, and typically, they would uphold HAC on appeal if they act within their jurisdiction, on conditions. So it's just something to keep in mind, that if you want local control over this project, and you want them to be responsive to real legitimate local concerns, including if there's abutter concerns that are legitimate and reasonable, and you try to condition it based on that, that's where you want this to be. You want to have as much control over it as possible, and if you lose the process to that HAC appeal process, you lose a lot of control over it. So hopefully that's helpful.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, our concern is, the reason we would like to know who the engineer is going to be sure we have no conflicts. We do business with an awful lot of engineering firms, so we want to be sure there are no conflicts that we may have. For example, if you had picked Christian, who buying and doing peer review, that would be a conflict, obviously, so things
Right,
like
but
that.
when
The
we're
other-
going out and looking for peer reviews, they will be asking us who
Yep.
they are, and therefore, they're gonna have to do a conflict check.
Yeah, but the conflict, yes,
Yeah.
it can be, yes, it can be quite
So
extensive.
in reality,
but-
you should be telling us who you're working with to make sure that
Oh,
we have the
we
right.
work, well, it depends.
No, with who you're working with on this project.
No, we have many projects going, so we're
Yeah.
dealing on the South Shore, North Shore, South Shore, central
Right.
Mass. So
But
we're,
if we go to engineer A and we say we're working with
Dulphic,
Dulford Associates, they're gonna say, no, we're working with them on another project, we can't work them on this.
but he could be working for one of my clients. For example, we're doing business with Stonebridge Homes, I'll just use that as an example. all right? They build 100, 150 houses a year, and they're all over the place. They have different engineers that they use, and I'm the permitting guy for them. So it can be, so we just wanna know, I mean, we wanna work with you, and that's, shouldn't be a problem, but we just need to know. So if you have 2 or 3 names, you know, so there again, I think it'd be better for everybody if we could have somebody local, if you can do that. The other concern that I have is scope of work, which you sort of referred to, is we've had peer review engineers take a look at all of the zoning bylaws and so forth, say, well, you know, you don't comply with section that, you don't comply with this, and they spend days and hours and tons of money doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing. That's a concern we have. So scope of work is another concern that I have. But, you know, we should not have any problem picking somebody. So getting back to the meeting, I don't know how you want,
I have a
because we want to
suggestion,
get
Mr. Chair.
we want to get the plans to the peer, whoever's selected as peer review as quickly as
I
possible.
have a suggestion. I would recommend, if you want to be the designee or you want somebody else to be the designee, I'd recommend I work with you, Mr. Chair, as designee and your administrator. We talk about the issues that you want to get peer review, who you might have in mind, including, I think, planning board recommended somebody specifically. We think about that. We get proposals, and then you bring that back to the board. The applicant can obviously be provided that, but we're not gonna pick it offline. I would recommend you bring it back to the full board. You discuss it in open session. You get our
We need
discussion of.
proposals, and that's not gonna, we
Exactly.
can't do that in 2 weeks. I mean, we can't, even we had the engineers today, we went through, we go
That's
to the
right.
ones the planning board use. What engineers is gonna give us a
I
proposal?
agree with you 100%.
In 2
So-
weeks.
And I do recommend you get the proposals, you know, you schedule it, your next hearing session far enough out, so you have that as a topic of discussion and a vote at the next hearing session. And the other thing you could cover is, if you can get the departmental comments and local boards and committees, all comments to
Right.
you by that next session.
Yes.
And the applicant can see it as you go along if they want to try to respond, so it's before you, you know, for the next hearing session, but maybe kind of have that teed up for the next session, that you solicit and get all the local board comments that you can get. And then you will have made quite a bit of progress. They're working on their stormwater management plan by then. You make the formal vote on the selection of the peer reviewers, and then you're off to the races. And the, you know, the public may be burning to comment, you know, and give you public comment formally. You can also start to open it up, you know, have a segment of the next session so that people get a chance to speak in case they're jumping out of there, you know, that they really want to speak on the project to you. I would recommend you open up that process sooner rather than later.
Okay.
I have a question. Do they have to solicit proposals if they have a couple of names and they want to give us, and they're happy with a couple of names and want to share it?
I feel more comfortable with Cynthia, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Cynthia's suggestion. I like proposals.
Proposals.
Well,
Even
for-
if you
for
know who-
For scope of work and the
Even if you
cost.
know who you want to select, you take that selectee and you ask them for a proposal. And they'll spell out, like, the concern that the applicant noted about something that's too broad. They spell out, we're gonna look at the, you know, we're gonna peer review the traffic report, we're gonna do a site visit, and we're going to account for 2 hearing sessions, or 1 in-person session, whatever it is. Typically, they'll put it right in the proposal.
Would it be fair to say that when we decide who we're gonna ask for a proposal, could we share the names of the applicant?
I have no problem with that.
This way they can, like, tell us, oh, we got a
That'd be
conflict right
perfect.
there, right?
Yeah.
We don't wanna get a proposal from someone who's conflicted out.
That'd be perfect.
But we don't need to do that in the hearing. We're gonna say, these are the ones we're soliciting proposals from.
I'm okay with
That
that.
would be fine.
Let us know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The
I
other
think
thing is-
though, I'm thinking this, I mean, it's gotta be a month.
At least.
Well,
I mean,
I'm always anxious to
I know you're
move
anxious
this
to get moving.
process along, and we're all stuck with a certain amount of time. So, I mean, yeah, so if you could decide, hopefully, within the month,
But you said that Christopher, is that correct?
Christian.
Christian, I'm sorry, that it was gonna take you about, what, a month or 5 weeks
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, 3 to
get-
4 weeks.
to get
Yeah,
that?
but then, when he's done, we wanna, so let's say in a month from now, it's, a peer review firm is selected.
Mhm.
So now, Christian's now gonna send him that information. They're gonna take 2 or 3 weeks to review, so now we're a couple of months out.
Yes.
That's-
No, but you've accomplished a lot in the next hearing session, and then you could schedule, like you were saying earlier, a topic for the next hearing session would be, say, peer review comment on the stormwater management report, or
Yep.
review of the traffic report, kind of do a topic by topic.
But I think the next one would be also, and you brought, and I like your comment, hopefully we can get comments back from the other town boards that we can discuss at the next meeting, so that if there are any issues with the police or the conservation or with the health department,
Sure.
that will give them enough time for us to get comments from them. And that would be a big help, because if we can get, the health department issues out of the way, don't have to worry about those, and the police department, as far as the size of the roads, I mean, that would be a big help.
Yeah, they should have already done that, but you're right.
So, but we need an actual something from each of the departments. And it would be, actually, it'd be really helpful, like I said, if you have a meeting, that one of us attend those meetings, so that.
Yeah, I mean, fire chief.
And
I think
then,
is important,
then
yeah.
we can prompt them, say, we really need a letter from you guys saying this is okay.
Yeah.
And that would, I think that would go a long way to start knocking off some of the gray areas.
Do we have a clock on it?
180
Yeah,
days.
6 months.
180 days.
And so you have 6 months to close the public hearing, then you have 40 days to issue a decision.
We just took 8 weeks out of it, pretty much.
Nope, from tonight,
From tonight, yeah.
public hearing.
No, but I'm saying, going forward, we're gonna make a meeting in the month.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's saying he's 5 or 6,
Yeah,
4
they-
or 5 weeks out. That's what he's saying. We just took,
That's
we just took 2 months
exactly
out
what
of
I'm,
it.
that's exactly what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yes,
I just wanna be mentally knowing there is a clock.
Yeah,
yes, there is.
but, yeah, there's a clock, you'll deal with it, you don't want to pay short shrift to any of these issues.
You don't have to take 6 months either.
Yep,
No, yes, right. There's a deadline clock, not a,
So we're
One
talking,
other
So-
comment I have is, Christian had brought up, Christian was involved in development in Mattapoisett. And it's very similar to what we're proposing here, in that it has, common septic,
Common septic.
and wetlands. How big is it? Why don't you talk about it a little bit?
It's, altogether, it was done in 2 phases. The first phase, I believe, was 9 lots. Second phase is 22. Overall, it's similar in size. It's in Mattapoisett.
Similar lot sizes?
Similar lot sizes, exactly, yeah.
They're
Range
prestigious
from,
over there.
I wanna say the smallest lot size may be 11,000 square feet. But very similar. So I definitely recommend, take a ride by there.
Where is it?
what, Mattapoisett, what's the name of it?
Mattapoisett, Brant Island, Village.
Rent?
Brant.
B-R-A-N-T?
I'm sorry.
I can provide the information,
Okay.
to Maria,
Or
right?
Brant Island,
Yeah.
right? B-R-A-N-T.
Yep.
DT.
Oh, DT, yeah. Where is it? Off of 6?
Off of Route 6. Yep, off of Brant Island Road. Yeah,
Can you get
I
us-
can provide you the
We'll-
plans
We'll send it to you, Mary, and then you could.
and send the address. Definitely, I recommend going by there, because it's
Okay.
very similar, and you can see the lot sizes. It's a nice dense community, and the community, they love it, because they can walk around safely
I
with
think
their
you live in
kids.
Mattapoisett at the schools.
okay,
I like
so,
Yes, not the end of the
you
world.
can pick a date.
What, the 6th or the 13th?
Because we have to see who's available.
Sure, of course.
So what are you saying?
The 6th
I got a
or the-
problem doing myself.
The 6th?
That's 5 weeks from now.
That's
Is-
fine,
No,
yeah.
is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, yeah.
Could do the
So,
30th?
I think the
The
30th.
30th?
The 30th would probably, I mean,
won't be
to
here.
keep,
Yeah.
I mean,
that means
No.
you get to take the notes. You're- us,
No,
you
she's the
clerk.
most important one.
I
so-
won't be here, but I'm.
Yeah, but I don't think,
Forward with it if you want.
What about the 6th?
Well,
That's 5 weeks, I think that's probably pushing it too much.
So the 30th would be okay, and if you need if we have to extend it, and you ask me, and.
well, yeah, see, we really can't do that. See, when we schedule a meeting, we have to be here for it.
Right.
Oh, okay.
We can't just say, nah, let's delay it. We scheduled a meeting tonight, we're gonna be here,
Okay.
whether anybody shows up or not.
So do the 30th, is that what you're suggesting?
Well, election day, the 5th or the 6th?
What's that?
Election day, the 5th or the 6th.
Oh,
The 5th.
Okay,
And I'm
just,
working 15
oh, that's
hours
what you're,
that day.
that's what you're gonna be doing, yeah.
just don't, I just wanna, didn't wanna conflict on that.
But, I mean, the hearing's not until 6:30 at night, so I should be able to.
Yeah, but that's the 5th is election
The rain
day,
won't be
6th is
rested,
not,
but-
right? It's, the election day is Tuesday, not a Wednesday.
Correct.
But we don't have to do what,
Election day is Tuesday, yeah.
yeah. I mean,
What about the 6th?
What about the, so can you do the 6th, Maria? Okay.
I'm good.
Jerry?
Yes.
I didn't
okay.
sound very excited.
I'm never okay.
I might not be here, but I'll have Christian take over.
Okay. I mean, we're gonna be going through the,
Yep.
yeah, okay. Constance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Janice? George? No, George's not here, okay. The other George,
Yeah, I can make it work.
good.
So you will be here at all of these hearings?
I will be. You're
or
stuck with
in-
me.
In person or by Zoom, right?
However you want me.
Yeah,
In person,
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be here.
yes.
yeah,
Can I ask you a question? So George is an alternate.
yeah.
Yeah, George and Janice are alternates. They,
So in order for them to continue to be an does he have to rehab himself? George?
Yeah, that's what he said in the
what I
early
said in
on.
my
He
opening
Well,
said-
he was
statements.
talking about the regular members.
I
No,
know, all of
he
everybody.
was directed to all of us when he was
Okay,
talking
so
earlier.
he would be doing the same thing.
Yeah, so George will have to then watch the video.
Yeah, okay.
And sign an affidavit saying he did watch the video, so that he could be then considered as a future voter.
Okay, great.
So if we get to, the point where I need to make a vote on something,
Yeah.
and two of us are not here, but our rule is that the regular members, we have 5 regular and 2 alternates. 5 regular members are always voting members unless, an alternate only gets to vote if a regular member doesn't attend, or if they have to recuse themselves for whatever reason. But there are a lot of cases, we need an alternate member because one of us can't show up for whatever reason, or is sick, or,
Yeah, there are certain.
So
rules.
in this case, since it's gonna be several meetings, I want all the members, all 7 of us.
Because you never know,
To be up to date.
because you never know when we're gonna, like, there could just be, we're all planned to be here, and then, like, I think George planned to be here. and
Right, right.
Something happened,
Yeah.
right?
Your comment?
Yeah, we can play it by ear. I don't love that. In a 40B, I like to make sure we designate at the beginning who's going to be the voting member.
The voting members are here, but
I know.
There's
I know
always
what
that
you're saying,
condition.
And you're saying that in the event, you miss 2, then you can bring in one of the alternates
Yes.
as a voting member. I don't love that.
I don't like it either, but it's,
I would prefer if you've specified who the voting members are, and we do our best,
Yeah.
that none of the voting members missed more than one.
Nobody has a
well,
heart attack.
okay, but
If somebody has a heart attack, then we have bigger
That's
problems.
what that's,
We can deal with that
I think
then.
that's why we're just gonna be prepared, things happen.
I think it's great that you do that, Roger, because it is smart, it thinks ahead, and if it's in accordance with your local regulations.
Yes.
But for 40Bs, I like the applicant to be able to know who you're voting, who they need the 3, who they need to get at least 3 votes from, because the majority only.
it's a majority only, right? But let me tell you that the issue is gonna be that this is gonna take 4, 5, 6,
It
or
is.
whatever, some number of meetings. When I get to the next meeting, if I don't show up, I'm gonna have to have an alternate vote. And that alternate had better be capable of doing that, and the only way they can do it is by certifying that they are up to date.
Yeah.
No.
But in the best case scenario, it's gonna be the
Right.
5 regular members
Yes.
that are gonna be voting.
Yeah, and I
But
should
for
specify
someone's-
too is,
Some circumstance beyond our
I mean,
control.
just because let's say George doesn't review the tape and wave in under Mullen, or he misses another meeting, it doesn't mean he can't come to future sessions and participate. It just means that when you ultimately vote the permit, He can't vote.
But he can't vote next, if one of us appears, can't be here next week, he can't vote next week. Because he would not have had the background to vote on it.
Without
So-
reviewing.
Without reviewing, so that he knows what's going on. He's not really capable of making a vote next week if one of us can't, next
But you're
month.
not saying you're gonna vote the permit next.
Yeah, it's
But
only.
unvote for another continuance, even if voting for a continuance, they need to be at least understanding what it is they're continuing.
Yeah, so
So-
you wouldn't need him to, if you have 4 members, you'd be able to vote to continue.
I would be able to, but in that case, then, it would, anyway, it's a whole lot easier if I keep everybody up to date and I don't have to worry about it.
I think it's good to do that, I'm just saying.
On the final permit.
I think in the final permit, it's gonna be the 5 voting members.
Yes, great.
As the development community has a real issue with what you're talking about. We're in several towns right now, we're down in one town to 2 members. And it's a constructive, in my opinion, it's a constructive approval.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
So, you know, and fortunately, you have a lot of people here, so some towns have a problem just getting people to be on the board.
Oh, we've got a
Yes,
problem.
yes,
You know, it's-
yes.
We've had that.
All small towns
Yes.
are like that.
Yeah,
so-
we're lucky now that Janice has just joined us and Georgia's coming. And we all started off as alternates, I think all of us. Well, Jerry's been here
Oh,
forever. so-
Jerry was
Jerry's
born
been
into the
forever.
zoning board.
But besides that, we all started off as an alternate and then eventually, but for years, we had 5 members. So if one of us didn't appear, then you're down to 4. And there are a lot of cases
Now,
that,
then you're down to 3, and then as a developer, we need unanimous approval.
Yes.
That doesn't work.
yes.
It may legally.
You just need a majority vote on
For this, we just need majority, so we just need 3.
No, majority
Majority, so we need 3. We need 3 good votes.
of eligible voters.
Yeah, we,
I think we've discussed it enough.
Yes.
I gave you my
So,
caution.
so are we picking the,
6th.
which date were we picking? The 6th?
the 6th.
The
6th of
November.
November. Okay, so I'll put it on my calendar. It'll be 6:30, and you'll be the only one on the docket, because this is not the kind of a thing that we can put 3 or 4 different.
Don't we need a motion to continue?
You need a motion to make a motion to
I'll
continue.
make a motion that.
Well, I think he has to ask for it,
I do?
yeah.
All right, I'm asking.
You don't need his consent
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
within your time.
I'll move.
Well, that's right, we're not doing it for his, okay, yes. And if
Move
there
to
are times
continue
when
this
we
hearing
require,
till-
anyways.
6:30 PM, November 6th.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The record show it's unanimous.
Thank you, Mr.
Just for the sake of the audience, we will be having public
Comment.
comments. We will, when they are appropriate. If you have comments that you want to provide to us, you can send Maria an email, and we will read those into the records. If you can't be here, or if there's something that you want to provide, you can provide Maria with any documentation or comments in between.
Yeah.
So, other than that, we will be in session on November 6th at 6:30 here. So, thank you all very much for showing up. This is going to be a bit of a process, but hopefully we all get through it.
Thank you, have a good evening.
You too.
George, thank you for coming. It was- we're going to have to rely upon you a lot, because this is something that, Jerry's done a couple of these. I did a part of one like 10 years ago, and I don't think anybody else has been involved. So this is, and it's way out of our purview.
Hence why I read that today. 'Cause I was
No,
like,
I'm happy to be here.
Yep.
Great town, it's gonna be a good, efficient project.
Now, have you had anything to eat? Are you?
No.
No. You want to stop on the way? There's a nice little restaurant on, I'll take you to it if you want.
It's 9 o'clock.
I got snacks.
Yeah,
in the
everything's
car.
Well, 9 o'clock, they're probably
Yeah.
closed.
Yeah.
Bittersweet is closed.
oh, they're closed, yeah.
What's that?
I mean, Westport may
I
can
was
open
gonna say,
up.
I could pull some
She's,
weight
she has,
and get a takeout.
she has, yeah.
Where you going? You need a motion to adjourn?
Do we have
I was just
meetings to
stretching.
approve?
No?
We got,
Okay, we'll do it next week. Okay, so,
okay. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye. Yay.
All opposed? No.